a lot of it was the normal Nvidia stuff of like, oh, we're great, this thing's going to be the best, claims and statements, whatever. But then it started to turn into just like pure bubble talk. Welcome to Broken Silicon, a gaming hardware podcast. I am your host, Tom, and today's lead sponsors are Monarch Money, where you can get 50% off your first year of Total Money Clarity through a link below and using code MOORE50, that's MOORE 50. And then also JLC PCB, where you can get $123 in coupons off of their PCBs. And then, of course, CDkeyoffer.com, where you can get Windows 11 Professional for $24. Dan, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you, Tom?
I'm good. A little flustered. It's funny. We usually record Sunday nights, and then that gives us all Monday to prepare it. Drop the early version for the patrons, like make sure all the I's are dotted before posting to YouTube and a million other websites on Tuesday. And it occurred to me though, like, I don't know, like a week ago, I don't remember what it was, like, oh, Computex is coming. This might be weird. Maybe we should wait till Monday or Tuesday or even Wednesday to see the Intel conference. And then I worked for like 30 minutes Saturday, just checking something before going to dinner. And it became clear the 9070 GRE was going to launch Monday. The 7700X 3D was going to launch with its price. There would probably be other the N1X was definitely about to launch. And I'm like, we already could have done a full episode without Computex. So I think if we wait for, like, if Intel reveals Nova Lake on Tuesday when this video comes out, well, I'll just make another video. Like, there's no point in us waiting any longer. But I am glad that we waited till Monday, because there was just a ton of stuff to discuss that really has filled out this episode. I think a lot of people were worried this Computex would be boring. I don't think it is very boring, actually. It's not the worst. It's not like we've seen of some recent conferences where it's AI, and there's nothing of substance really shown.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of announcements. But one part of it, I think, is just people are always expected to be a little disappointed. I guess I will say from from this Computex, I feel like there's a lot there. I don't know how much I like all of it, but that doesn't mean there's nothing to discuss about it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's just get right into it here. Let me get into, we actually have a few corrections this time. The first one comes, unsurprisingly, from Carbon Cry, who writes in and says, Tom, in the last Broken Silicon, you said some BS about Sony having to get Nvidia GPUs because the cell was not good enough. Cell was actually more than good enough. Back then, GPUs had vertex pipes, shaders for doing geometry, and then pixel pipes, shaders for applying textures and actually coloring the pixels. The idea of the PS3 was that the Cell CPU would be the vertex pipes, and Sony was developing their in-house chip for pixel pipes. So the Cell did its part, but Sony couldn't complete the other half of it and had to scramble to get Nvidia. And when they did that with a full GPU, that's something that would bypass the SPUs, they lost their main target workload and were, well, not worth the money for the console. That's a good clarification, I suppose, because a lot of times people describe it like, oh, they were just going to use the Cell and nothing else. And it sounds like, no, Sony was like trying to make their own GPU and gave up.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think we've ever implied that the Cell was a weak piece of hardware, just very misfit with the rest of the console landscape, and even the PS3 at the time, I guess, because their development goals failed, but and it was just impossible to code for.
Well, and that's the funny thing, is that the PS3 ended up as this expensive console that everyone saw as like, wow, they spent too much money on this, and they wanted their own in-house GPU, or like to do it without having to use Nvidia. The console was supposed to really come out a year sooner with not needing an Nvidia GPU. It might have originally been planned to be a $400 box that came out at the same time as the 360 or less, And it is just funny to think that, because I think people look at the PS3 and they're like, oh, look at Sony's hubris. And it's like, no, look at Sony's F up. I mean, like, they didn't try to make something with all of these issues. They just kind of failed at a few things.
Yeah, just fell into having a lot of issues. I mean, I guess the hubris thing comes in with it. Was another like kind of statement piece from like a design perspective, but like I
or
don't know.
like the E3, right? A 2005 or 2006 E3. Like the console itself wasn't because of hubris, but they sure seemed cocky at the E3, and that's probably where all that comes from.
Yeah. But I don't know. I guess Microsoft took them down to size a little bit, and that's how we got the PS4. But
LSM Judoka writes in and says, "Hey Tom, a few times you've mentioned that the PS5 Pro has 300 tops of AI performance, that the 9070 XT is like 1500. These actually are not apples to apples numbers. The 9070 XT's advertised 1557 tops is measured on int 4 calculations with sparsity, whereas the PS5 Pro's 300 tops is int 8 without sparsity. On the same metric as PS5 Pro, the 9070 XT has 389. Yeah, but I don't believe, like, let me search this. Int 4, right. Does PS5 Pro have int 4 with sparsity? No, it does not. So I'm not really wrong though. This is kind of like the thing where we go back and we compare like FP8 and all the FP16, all these ways of doing things. And a lot of times people are like, well, apples to apples, it would really be this. It's like, well, yeah, but like, for example, the PS4 Pro had FP16 and the Xbox One X didn't. And that did give it a 15% boost above what the teraflops would suggest. Still weaker than the Xbox One X, but it isn't as much weaker as you would think. And so I know apples to apples, it's only like 30% faster at that sort of calculation, but it can do entire calculations the PS5 Pro can't do. So does that mean it's literally like 5 times faster, 6 times faster? I'm not an expert, but I'm sorry. Like, to me, that tells me were you to optimize well to that architecture, it's going to run circles around the PS5 Pro still, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it's still a factor that like it can do calculations that the PS5 can't do, basically. Although, you know, it is a little funny always seeing those graphs of especially Nvidia with their like improvement in compute, and every year it's just really more and more comes down to them showing off lower precision calculations. But
yeah, and so again, like, in the case of Nvidia, are there times where that'll make a huge difference? Yes, but more and more you do hear people say, I'm not sure every app is actually going to use this new thing, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, was I wrong to say that? I don't know. I mean, I think the truth is really in the middle. It is actually a lot better at some things, but no, not every operation will it be 100 times better or so. Yeah. In next gen or something.
Yeah.
Again, it'll depend on the game and if they truly program it to the next generation. Jensen Wang writes in and he says, I migrated my dad to a new laptop the other weekend and OneDrive made it super easy. Those are fighting words.
I didn't realize we had a Microsoft bot here in your Discord, Tom, but
there's a few OneDrive truthers.
I don't know if I trust Jensen. I also don't know how many Jensen Wangs we have in the Discord at this point. I don't know.
I think it's 1 or 2.
Okay. So this Jensen Wang, you're also a Microsoft bot. I don't know if I trust you anymore. I'm sorry. And I'm starting to think this guy isn't actually Jensen Wang, Tom.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll have to see. I mean, we have a lot of Jensen stuff coming up. Maybe we can compare to how he talks. Which, on that note, let us get into the stories. We have more than usual today. And the first one involves NVIDIA, like I was just saying. Story number 1. NVIDIA stops reporting gaming GPU revenue, quoting from Tech Power Up. NVIDIA reported its Q1 2026 earnings with revenue reaching $81.6 billion, setting a new record. Amid these record-breaking results, the company announced a change in how it reports revenue from its GeForce RTX gaming GPUs. According to NVIDIA CFO Colette Kress, the standalone GeForce RTX GPU gaming revenue is no longer separately listed and now integrated under the Edge Computing segment. This segment highlights devices for agentic and physical AI, including PCs, game consoles, workstations, AI RAN, base stations, robotics, that's an important one, and automotive. NVIDIA's latest reporting change says a lot. Now, NVIDIA is not making a distinction between gaming GPUs and chips for cars or even robots in practical terms. That makes it much harder to track how gaming itself is performing quarter to quarter. And let's be real, gaming is no longer the story Wall Street cares about. If it ever was, it kind of was. Nvidia has little incentive to spotlight it. The company is not abandoning GeForce, but it is absolutely telling investors that AI and data centers are the main event now, as gaming itself is laundered into just another niche of edge AI. I have to say, someone's a fan of Moore's Law is dead if they're saying they're laundering things into different parts of their revenue, as that is a term I've used a lot with that. All right, there's the rest of the write-up, though. Now let's flip the script a bit. GeForce is a healthy, growing business. Robotics, though, is not. We have theorized robotics is the next bubble that NVIDIA will seek to latch onto in the future here at Moore's Law is Dead. So it would make sense to boost the robots results with gaming, and that can A, accelerate the next bubble, like look how much money is making with robotics in that robotics segment, and B, hide any slowness in the growth of robotics if they need to. So it's not just that NVIDIA doesn't care about gamers, which is the main takeaway everyone had from this story. We here want to add on to it. It's also that what little use they have for gamers now, they want to leverage to boost their next bubble. This was largely a catch by Carbon Cry, I have to agree with. Putting robotics in there before they hype up robotics, I 100% agree this is a way to kind of make it. Grouping gaming with all of this other stuff means they can make anything look good if they need to, or at least not look bad.
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a counter case, or I guess I'm not really making a strong case here, just more saying that I think it's dubious. Like I'm not sure why robotics and gaming are a natural fit. Maybe there's some connection there that I just don't get or see.
I don't think so.
But yeah, lumping them in together, I don't know, seems weird. I mean, we saw like that also happen with, well, not this exact same thing happened, but remember with Microsoft on the Xbox sales when it was floundering. So, a lot of the time it seems like, when they're trying to hide or boost the relative performance of some metric, they just lump them in together. And the idea of them trying to do this to accelerate the expansion of another bubble, as you call it, or as I'm sure Jensen would call it, a new frontier in uses for their hardware, is really worrying to me, because it does make me feel that like the stock market is kind of more and more just operating on this concept of, well, if we believe this bubble has Kevlar armor around it, it will never pop. Like that, I am getting a little bit worried that that's kind of how the stock market is operating at this point.
Yeah, and I want to add on to, there's also another side of this, which is, it's all about flexibility. Yes, they can use, if they go really hard with their next generation of GPUs and those do really well, they can use that to say, kind of hide if some of theirs aren't doing as, like if robotics isn't taking off as fast as they wanted, or make it look like it's doing very well. But on the other hand, this might also be a way to hide from gamers how much they don't care about them. It really is both, because at the end of the day, I put out how many leaks now about NVIDIA stopping production of graphics cards? I mean, go check Newegg, everybody. The 9070 XT, despite record revenue in gaming from AMD, and they say a lot of it's because of their GPU sales, is going down in price. They are producing plenty of these things. And then you just look at the competitor, and it's like the 5070 Ti is $1,000. Like, it's just... None of these are even worth considering. There's like maybe 2 NVIDIA graphics cards, if you're a gamer, that are worth considering anymore. And it's because they're not making them. This way, we can't keep breaking it out and going, especially if the AI bubble were to pop and they were working on a new bubble, and go, look, they're not even making GPUs. So this is a way to hide that as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a factor to that. I guess. I mean, to some extent, I guess I don't know how much they really care about that at this point. Like, I think in a lot of ways they've really gone past the point of even caring about messaging to gamers, and like this obfuscation around this attempt to obfuscate to gamers. I mean, I guess it's an easy way to do it, but like also to some degree, I'm like, well, I wonder if the executives at NVIDIA even really care if they're pissing off gamers at this point, because I think it's pretty clear that it's just less and less of a factor that they consider. But I don't know. I suppose there's always going to be this need for gamers to be, or gaming, I shouldn't just say gamers, gaming as a fallback option for NVIDIA if one of these bubbles end up popping and they need to go back to their bread and butter issues. But
yeah, I mean, again, I would imagine there will be some comments that will be tempted to be like, oh, they're not using it to boost it. Gaming's, a rounding error on their. It's like it's not quite a rounding error, guys. And if they didn't care about gaming and they just didn't want to talk about it, there's a lot of ways they could just lump it in with other stuff. And robotics just really stands out as a weird thing to group it with, where I don't think it's a coincidence.
Yeah, and another thing, like I just don't really see how gaming necessarily is even a natural fit in the category of edge computing. Like these just don't seem like like natural comparisons to me. It's very evident that they're trying to hide something or, not tell the full picture about whatever.
Yeah, like you could group in gaming easily with like just any home PCs, maybe even
exactly
game consoles, absolutely, workstations. All of that makes sense to me. But automotive robotics should be probably its own thing, and they don't want that to happen, because what if one doesn't work out and you can't, mess or have the Nintendo, because it would include that, I think, as well, have the Nintendo Switch 2 sales mask that it's not working. So I think there's something intentional there.
Yeah.
HMS 972 writes in and says, "Hi Tom, Jensen recently said at Computex, and I'm paraphrasing, we used to make CPUs for humans. Now we're making them for AI agents, and there are only 1 billion humans. Oh my God. There will be billions of AI agents. In my opinion, being a servitor in Warhammer 40K is less dystopian than the future Jensen is laying out here. At least in 40K, humanity still matters." I actually think it's a much more cold and bubbly thing than that. They're just saying, I know what someone probably is doing the math. Like, the next guest, Ed Zitron's probably already done the math. Like, we literally couldn't sell this to enough people. And so NVIDIA's like, oh no, we're not going to sell these graphics cards to people. We're going to sell them to 1 billion AIs or 10 billion AIs, not 1 billion people. And that's why we should keep this bubble inflating. That's what that is, I think. I don't think this is him actually saying humans don't matter. I think this is him saying we should be a $10 trillion company, because not only will every human own an AI agent, every AI agent will start somehow buying AI agents. And all of this makes sense.
Yeah. I don't know. At a certain point, it does almost feel like, well, what is the way to maximize profit? What if we just started creating our own customers? And
yeah,
I don't know. It is starting to feel like that. Like a Rocco's basilisk idea of like a robot AI overlord creating
Rocco's
robot
capitalism basilisk, where we create people to buy
AI
from
hell
us. It's not even
for us. And Jensen Wang is the harbinger of Rocco's basilisk now. And I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I generally agree with what HMS is saying here. Like, I feel like I've been sounding the alarm on like these utterly dystopian conference and keynotes NVIDIA has been giving for like the past 3 years now, where it more and more feels like they're just giving the same keynote speech every year about AI to me. And yeah, I hate it every time. And I'm glad, I don't know, I hope it's starting to break through more that this is very dystopian.
Fred Berger writes in and says, how much do you think NVIDIA is hurting their walled garden in production applications by simply not providing GPUs that are affordable? Radeon has been getting better feature support in Blender, for example, and it's becoming increasingly difficult, at least for me, to suggest buying NVIDIA to other people who are interested in these applications simply because the price is so much higher. I 100% agree, and it's funny because there's always, even when I think NVIDIA has been the most, monopoly, milky, like there's something that I think is good. Like I think the 5060 Ti, or really the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte, when that was around $400, I was like, yeah, I don't know. I think I actually like that more than the 7700 XT because it has more RAM and it's a little weaker, but it's also a little cheaper. You get DLSS. Yeah, I can usually find, like, I like the 4090. I like the 5060 Ti 16 gigabytes. It's kind of actually interesting.
There's usually, especially lately, there's usually been a couple GPUs in NVIDIA's lineup that are I think are highly recommendable. I mean, not like we said earlier, not right now, but
right, because if I look up the 5060 Ti 16 gigabyte, which the 8 gigabyte is persona non grata here. Yeah, I mean, look, it's $570. This is, as we'll get to, and this will explain why the 9070 GRE is $550. No, you don't pay more for this. I mean, this is all a complete joke. And so I don't know what else to say, Fred, except that, yeah, I'm there with you. I'm seeing people all the time, sometimes even in the Moore's Law Discord, where they're like, oh man, usually it's in the YouTube comments actually, where it's like, oh man, I need 16 gigabytes. Should I really get the 5080 for $1,500 or the 5070 Ti for $1,000? I'm like, or you save $400, get one that's faster than the 5070 Ti, the 9070 XT. Mm-hmm. And actually, depending on what resolution you're playing at, it's actually maybe better than a 4090. Like I found in Battlefield 6, if you're at 1440p and actually trying to hold 240 hertz, it's easier to do it on a 9070 XT than a 4090 because of the CPU overhead issue. Now, the second you go to 4K, 4090 easily wins. There's a lot of people in 1440p that are buying 5080s, and I have to just sit here and go, actually, you might be getting, and Hardware Unboxed put up videos about this, 10% less performance than turn everything to ultra, crank up. Yeah. But did you turn everything to ultra? Like the realistic settings you're using, half the time the 9070 XT gets a higher frame rate. And I don't know. I don't know what else to say, except it's also hard for me. And is this actually hurting them, like not producing enough cards? We won't know until RDNA 5 if AMD actually makes enough of that. Like that comes out late next year or mid next year, maybe. And it's widely available, which maybe it will be. They have to get all this capacity to make the Xbox Helix. They can pull from that for desktop. Any excess production can go to desktop. We'll see. That's when we'll know if this has hurt NVIDIA. But until then, all we can say is AMD has record revenue, NVIDIA has record revenue, and there's a bubble, and we don't know what would happen if people had to make real choices and how much this is really hurting NVIDIA's credibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely causing a perception issue with NVIDIA, but I think NVIDIA's counter argument to that is AI money go burr, and they don't really care anymore. And that's quite a big bet. I don't think it's going to be a bet that completely fails, even with the AI bubble inevitably popping at some point. NVIDIA is still probably going to make a lot of money off of AI into the future, even if there's a downturn for a while in AI applications, or AI shovels, as we like to call NVIDIA's hardware.
Techno writes in, does NVIDIA have a CEO succession problem? Jensen Huang is clearly aging poorly as a CEO. I don't know about that yet. And he is being propped up by his engineering and finance departments, but his public skills, as seen in Gamers Nexus' latest video, is aging poorly. Well, it's all relative. It's certainly better than Elon Musk, So I actually find, compared to most other of these like tech billionaires, I find Jensen Huang far more charming, honestly, than any of the other ones, pretty much.
Yeah, we've really lucked out, at least in the not excessively creepy factor, with Lisa Su and Jensen Huang being the two big CEOs that we see at conferences all the time.
Now, he says it's getting worse and worse each year.
I agree
with that. And I think it's because you get more and more sucked into this bubble and this circle of people. Half of them are on ketamine, snorting stuff and making you act like it can't help but wear off on you. And there's got to be a big issue here where Jensen really is just wildly successful. I mean, what, $82 billion in revenue? I mean, he is successful. In fair or not, that less people are going to challenge you. It's a weird poll here, but it's why the prequels for Star Wars sucked ass. It's because, well, the first one at least, because no one questioned George Lucas. Just no one would, because he was so successful. And you almost can't blame them. Why would you? He's been so up until now. And so I think it's mostly that as well with Jensen, is that probably no one questions him anymore, because why would they? He's made so many good decisions. And I don't really know where I'm going with this, but it's like, I guess what I'm saying is I don't yet see Jensen as someone that's like falling apart or steering the company wrong. And I think a succession problem is who the hell fills those shoes, much like Steve Jobs.
Yeah, I mean, for Jensen, like, I definitely think over the past few years, he's gotten a bit more, he feels a bit more disconnected from like what will make people like him, but he still seems like a human, which, puts him ahead of a lot of the CEOs that we see talking all the time these days. So he has that going for them, but I don't think it could hurt for, I don't know, more CEOs, probably including Jensen Huang, to like have their personality focus group or their public personality focus group a little bit now. But
I think they do.
I'm sure they do, but I don't know if that's if that's the personality they're landing on. I think there's some disconnect going on because it's kind of weird in a lot of ways. And I guess the thing with Jensen Huang is he more and more just comes off as arrogant than anything, which I guess kind of makes sense.
It depends who you are. Like, arrogance doesn't always bother me that much. Honestly, some people can't stand it, even a modicum of it. And I mean, again, yeah, I don't know.
He's created like the highest valued company in the world. So,
yeah. And he actually has. It's not like all hype. Well, we'll see. Some of it might be actually, but
yeah, well, we'll see how much
compared
to
some other
companies at the end of it. But yeah, compared to certain companies where they, I don't know, like Tesla, that is one of the highest valued companies in the world right now.
Sales go down, stock price goes up. Yeah.
Yeah. Despite the fact that like Toyota sells way more cars than them. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of arrogance, I will say there was quite a bit of it on display here with story number 2. This piece of content is brought to you by Monarch Money. Monarch is a private, ad-free personal finance platform that brings all of your accounts into one clean dashboard. It automatically tracks your spending and net worth and helps you stay financially aligned by, well, allowing you to control your finances without micromanaging them and keeping them all in one place so you don't get dozens of notifications that you feel like you have to pay attention to every day. And you know what I mean, right? Like if you have a few bank accounts, maybe a credit card or two and a debit card, not to mention the bills that you pay for where you live, you'll get all of these notifications from all of these different places. And because it involves your money, well, speaking for myself, at least earlier before Monarch Money, I'd feel like I have to pay attention to every single little one. It's my money. I have to pay attention to it. But there's just so much. And you don't have to do that with Monarch Money. It's all in one place. And the better control is further accelerated by AI-powered insights as well that summarize important things like where spending has increased, unusual transactions, and where total net worth changes are coming from. Again, all in one place, despite pulling from tons of different things that would all be bothering you separately usually. Plus, it allows you also to confidently monitor your progress. Monarch lets you watch your net worth, project it out, and help you come up with and keep to goals having to do with paying down debt and making investments. This is easy, cross-platform, flexible budgeting. Plus, it syncs with 13,000 plus institutions. It's fast and has a secure setup with all major banks and credit cards and brokerages. And it's even couples ready so partners can share and monitor their finances together. So if you want these features in your life and you also want to support Moore's Law is Dead, you can start a free trial and get 50% off your first year of Total Money Clarity using my link below and using offer code MOORE50. That's MOORE 50. Doing so doesn't just help you monitor your finances, it also helps Moore's Law is Dead directly. So support Moore's Law is Dead by starting a free trial with Monarch Money through the link below today. NVIDIA N1X finally officially unveiled, starting with a notebook check before we go to the follow-up write-up. NVIDIA's long-awaited Windows on ARM chip is finally here. Formerly known as the N1X, which was likely its internal codename, the chip will launch as the RTX Spark. It won't be the only one, with NVIDIA stating other lower-spec SKUs are expected to surface later. Of course, this isn't exactly new information. Officially, NVIDIA has refused to divulge much in the way of specs. Even though we've known it forever, by the way. But the RTX Spark will come with an unspecified GPU with 6,144 CUDA cores. It's some version of Blackwell. That's what it is, on 3 nanometer. And a 20-core CPU tailor-made by the MediaTek. NVIDIA claims the GPU can comfortably run games at 1440p thanks to DLSS 4.5 and frame gen. I don't like that wording. Reflects in the laundry list of gaming features found on Blackwell GPUs. So, yep, after a year of launch leaks from this channel and then delay after delay, NVIDIA has finally taken the wraps off N1X, its first serious attack on the x86 duopoly. NVIDIA is trying to sell the dream of a laptop that can do real AI work, incredible gaming without needing a discrete GPU or such on an archaic thing as an x86 CPU. RTX Spark is being sold as the AI box we feared Helix would be marketed as well. It actually is kind of exactly that. Other than NVIDIA's diehard adherence to AI marketing, to be honest, we haven't learned much new here, and we won't until reviews come out, and not just quick benchmarks, but more long-term experiences with RTX Spark. Even Snapdragon X Elite looked much better in first impressions than it ended up aging with long-term usage. And N1X, or GB10, is a seriously buggy piece of silicon, according to our sources at NVIDIA. If you're thinking of buying it and it's not to make content like for a review or something, probably you should hold off for now, especially as early Geekbench results show the CPU part of the device lagging behind even the X Elite and Apple's M3, not M5, not M4, M3. No matter how good the GPU is, then games still need that CPU to not bottleneck it, especially if there's also tasks to run an ISA translation layer for most of the games to even work. Now, that could change now, though. NVIDIA has that pull that we would think they would have to make devs port to ARM. Most importantly, they are already working on porting common anti-cheat software as well, something even Valve has failed to do. And outside of that, Dan, you already saw the short version of this, but I would like Gerard here to play NVIDIA Computex N1X bubble file just to summarize how weird this has felt.
This is the N1X that we built in partnership with MediaTek, a chip that, frankly, would take 33 years to build. This agent could run 24/7. It becomes more like C3PO to you, and it's sitting here connected to your whole house, connected to your laptop, connected to your display, all the cameras, your dryer, your water cooler, your water heater, your lawnmowers, dishwashers. I could totally imagine that someday there's actually an AI supercomputer in your house. And you have to have it in your house, just as every house today has a home theater. Remember, 15, 20 years ago, we used to have an idea called a phone. Today, we have an idea called a PC. And these, in time, becomes a lot more like R2-D2 to you.
And yeah, Dan, you watched that. I mean, it was bizarre, a lot of it. Like, a lot of it was the normal NVIDIA stuff of like Jensen Huang coming out and being like, oh, we're great. You know, this thing's going to be the best. Vague claims and statements, whatever. But then it started to turn into just like pure bubble talk. Like, this isn't just a laptop chip. This is R2-D2. And you're going to have 5 of these in your house. And then like, I think a lot of novice investors, because their stock price popped today, don't get the difference between some of the things he showed on stage. Like, he's just like, we're going to make all of these. Everyone's going to want one. And you can use your laptop as an AI agent. And then he's like, and look at this. It has like whatever. But he like quotes a desktop that has way better specs. And he's like, he has 800 gigabytes of RAM. So what? This is like $20,000. Like, I mean, like, I don't like, he's acting like everyone's going to have an AI agent in their house. And then he holds up a thing that's like something worth $2,000 to $5,000. And then he's like, and this can run the full whatever LLM. That thing's worth tens of thousands. There's no way anyone's going to be able to afford that. And he's like turning it into this thing of like, we're evolving beyond PC. He literally compares it to, this is the new like smartphone moment.
I am getting a little concerned about what's happening at NVIDIA, where I think to keep this rate of growth going, like they kind of just need to be constantly selling this idea of the most valuable company in the world, constantly going into new frontiers, where I don't know, when I look at the N1X, what I see is something that's probably like has the potential to be a pretty decent gaming SoC. I mean, I think what remains to be seen is how much the CPU is going to hamper that GPU, because I think the GPU looks like it should be a pretty good gaming GPU, just maybe gets disserved by the CPU it's paired with.
It's hard to say. I know we analyzed its performance recently, though, because again, this isn't new. Like, this thing has been out there in Project Digits forever. And the benchmarks I've seen suggest this thing is quite a bit weaker than an RTX 5070, despite having the same amount of CUDA cores. And with that in mind, it's like, well, then how close? Okay, so it's probably better than Strix Halo, but how much better? And is it just Gorgon Point but buggy? Like, you know, we don't know yet.
Well, yeah. And the other fact that remains to be seen is how well ARM continues to underperform even on NVIDIA hardware versus Qualcomm's hardware. But like, that all aside, I mean, I think just even in the best case scenario for what the Spark could end up being, I think it's just another laptop chip, and they want to be selling something that's more than that. So they're going to try to sell this idea that this isn't something that, like, I don't know, that you need to get for a thin and light. This is something that you need to get, or it's the progenitor to like this future of an AI agent that will be in everyone's house, even if like that's kind of just disconnected from reality, in my opinion. But
at this point in time, and again, I have to address this because this is the point in time where someone's like, oh, he doesn't even get what Nvidia is talking about when he says R2D2, and oh my God, this guy. No, I get it. I had like 30 minutes or an hour of a recent podcast episode with Wendell from Level 1 Techs, where we talk about like in the future, like maybe in a few years, you'll be able to get something this big that will be, you know, maybe $3,000 instead of what Jensen's showing off, 20 grand. And like that will remove this tokenization runaway effect that's starting to happen, by the way, which I don't know. I watched actually something last night about this. Like there's a huge, like, Anthropic's kind of taking out OpenAI right now, and they're like selling the use of their like Claude to all these major corporations, and they've ballooned in revenue a ton. But there's a lot of people that think they're about to massively contract because like no one understands how many tokens will actually have to be used to do what we're doing at home. Like right now, OpenAI is massively subsidized, hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue they keep raising to just throw into a money pit. And like we sit at home and we use Gemini or we use ChatGPT and we like type and just talk to this thing for a long time. And it's like, well, that costs me $20 a month. And it's like, it didn't cost OpenAI $20 a month. And when they sign these corporate contracts with a corporation, they will then take it and think they can use it like that, and then find that when they're actually charged how much it costs, they have to stop using it. This is in the wrap up. Amazon, I think Bezos just told his employees to stop using AI. It's costing them too much money. Like this is a real problem. And so, yeah, I mean, if that's happening at the corporate level, I don't know how this will be affordable at the home level yet. They need to bring that cost down, and I think that's going to take many years. But they can't act like it. They can't, because they have to pretend that their valuation is legit. They're not all about to contract.
Yeah, it really does. It really is just starting to feel like all of these AI tech companies are almost like, I don't know. It almost feels like, you know, they're just like you're trying to hide like your dirty apartment, so you just like shove everything in a closet. And it's like, don't worry, don't look in that closet. Everything is fine. And that really is starting to feel like what they're trying to sell to us. Like there's this massive back end of resources that are being used that they don't want you to think about, even though when you actually consider that, and if they want it to expand, AI use to expand as much as they seem to need it to for this to continue fueling revenue growth, you have to kind of just ignore the fact that it doesn't make sense. And also you might see that huge contraction that from like the perspective that you're talking about, but also from the fact that more and more places are just out and outright rejecting this idea of building more AI or more data centers to house AI because people don't want them in their communities.
Yeah, and again, I want to be clear. So what I was saying with the Windows stuff, everybody, I'm not against the idea that someday in this studio, this will just be sitting here. It will be as strong as what Gemini is now, and it will be securely and without them being able to snoop on me, doing things for me, doing research for me. Totally. But that's not what the N1X is. It's not at the level you could do that yet. And the ones he showed off that could are worth tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, one of those, how much power does that pull? 2,000 watts or something? You know,
yeah, we might be like,
we're just not there yet. And he's making it sound like he's about to launch this year something that we really won't have ready for years to come, and that this is just going to take time.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? We might not be able to see something like that can run a model that size, that can run a model that complex until we're to like, I don't know, 4A or whatever node shrink we're to.
Half a nanometer?
Yeah. Or negative nanometers. I don't know what they're going to do at a certain point, but Yeah, like we might be very far ways away from this, but they need you to think that this is going to just keep growing at an exponential rate. And I think it's doubtful.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I guess I don't know what else there really is to say about N1X because, and I apologize to everyone. It's like, where is this AI bubble talk coming from? I thought we were going to talk about.
What else is there to talk about?
What exactly? We already knew the specs. I leaked it years ago. I think we already knew the specs. We already knew. Like, let me say this as well. The die size came out. It's almost 400 millimeter squared total, so it's close to Strix's Halo die size, except now it's all 3 nanometer. So these are going to go in probably $3,000 plus laptops. What is there to say? Because if you're going to do AI development on the go, this is a big competitor to Strix Halo and those really expensive $5,000 variants of that. And it'll be a big competitor to Gorgon Halo that's launching in months or whatever. Sure, it will be. I agree. But that's it. That's not a market of millions of these PCs sold to normal consumers. That's a AI dev wants Gorgon Halo, but it has CUDA. That's what that is. And we can't evaluate anything else about it. We kind of only can talk about the AI because they showed the Vegas slides. Like I have a screenshot Gerard can put up where Jensen Huang's holding 2 laptops, running games. But from what I can tell, it might just be a video playing of the game running. I could be wrong, but we don't have any proof 007, which looks really good, by the way, was actually running. And the only numbers they gave was like one slide showed a racing game and it said 100 FPS 1440p. They didn't even say the game. If you figure that out, we don't know the settings, nothing.
And so the fact and the fact that they were leading with frame gen, who the hell knows what that actually means? Maybe that was running at 25 frames native. Like, who the hell knows?
But yeah, and so, in conclusion, if this thing ends up gaming well, I'm going to go, cool, but I'm not surprised. It's like when the first Mac, APUs came out and me and you were like, they're impressive, but also they're not alien like tech. They just bought the most transistors. They bought the most expensive node and it has a big die. That's why it's good. That's the case with this. If this ends up outperforming Gorgon Halo by like 20% in gaming, I'm going to go, okay, so what? It loses multi-threading, like maybe ties to beat single threading by 10%, narrowly wins in graphics, and
probably
it costs hundreds of dollars more. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and that, like, even if it ends up being like that much better than what's on the market, that's just kind of a good first foray into their APUs. But that's about it. And like you said, compared it to Alien Tech with the Apple, they are literally advertising this as Alien Tech with C3PO and R2D2.
That's true. But, and to the people that would say, well, yeah, but that's still a big deal. If it's more efficient, faster, even by just 10% across the board against Gorgon Halo, why wouldn't that be impressive? And I would say, because this is a Zen 6 competitor. Guys, it's not out yet. Like, from what I've been told from my OEM contacts, is this will probably paper launch in Q4, really be out early next year. And that means, that it'll be competing with AMD's actual 3 nanometer competitors that I think are going to be wildly faster than what they have this year. So that's it. We've known the specs forever. The specs are not any different from what we've been telling you they were going to be in leak after leak for years. The Geekbench benchmark we have out now is not impressive. It's actually quite bad in my opinion. I don't know how it will run with, trying to run Windows. And so that's it. They talked about AI, so we had to talk about AI because that's really what they talked about. And the truth is we don't know how good this thing is yet, and we might not know for 6 months.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, what we have then outside of AI is specs that we've known and promises, which we, based on how much they weren't focusing on the promises, I don't think that really spells confidence in how well this thing is going to perform.
Yeah, I was just actually talking to that.
It can't perform well in any game, but like if you're really sidelining talking about like the performance of like things, applications that we'll actually use, and just talking about C3PO for your keynote, I don't know. I don't think that inspires confidence. I think you're blowing smoke up my ass.
Right. And I talked to Vex, who was recently on the podcast offline a little bit today. And he's like, I'm kind of surprised they didn't show more gaming. And I said, that's a huge red flag to me. This is a consumer laptop.
Mhm.
You would think even if you lead with AI, there'd be a segment where you're like, this is whatever gaming performance. Maybe there's a reason it's not coming out for another 6 months. I mean, if they're not willing to tell us the actual performance and again, I know they often are vague in their reveals with gaming performance, but they showed us nothing.
Yeah.
Like that makes me concerned that this thing is really just a Strix Halo competitor a year after Strix Halo and after Panther Lake's out. And when they say it's the most efficient, it's like, is it? I mean, is it really going to be more efficient than Panther Lake? We'll see. Techno writes in and says, hey, Tom and Dan, do you still think we will see Soundwave coming out this year? There hasn't been an update for over a year now. Yeah, because I've had nothing to add. And Gerard can put the thumbnail and we'll link to it with a card. But like, I'm just pulling open here, 2 B cores, 4 E cores, 4 RDNA 3.5 CUs. Who knows? Maybe they've upgraded that to RDNA 4M. But outside of that, when did I say this was going to launch? Here, I'm looking at it. I think I always said it's probably going to launch late. Okay, so I did say it's targeting a 2026 launch. So as far as I'm aware, it's probably launching end of this year or early next year. And I have actually asked sources recently, and they said probably going to get an update later this year. And I do see these comments a lot, especially lately with the ARM on Windows thing with Nvidia now. And they're like, well, what about Soundwave? Guys, Soundwave is not an N1X competitor. This thing is like a Mendocino alternative. This is a budget chip. This 4 compute units, 6 cores, only 2 of them are P cores. This is, if you care about the N1X, you don't care about Soundwave. It's not interesting to you. This is a budget Chromebook APU.
Yeah. I mean, I think last time we talked about Soundwave, we said Chromebooks is what this sounds like it will be for.
So,
like, I don't think it's, I mean, I always hope to be wrong, but I don't, at a certain point, I don't think Soundwave sounds like all that interesting of a chip. Like,
the most thing I'll be interested in is, does it run Windows well? If it does, cool, AMD can do it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's really the extent. And like, I think it could be a good budget mobile gaming chip, maybe. Like if the Windows ARM thing, especially with Valve's initiatives into ARM that seem to be developing with the Steam frame, come to fruition, you could see this running SteamOS, and even with just 4 compute units, it could be a good on-the-go indie, easy-to-run game thing that gets exceptional battery life for a handheld. That's really the coolest thing I could come up with, and I'm not even sure it would be good at that. So I don't talk about Soundwave because I don't think anything's really changed, and I don't find it that interesting. I don't know. Maybe I'll ask my sources about it this week, but it'd probably be a good timing. But I just don't think it's going to be remotely as interesting as people want it to be.
Just put out a new video. Soundwave is going to have 72 compute units.
72 compute units. All right. Let us move on now to story number 3. AMD RX 9070 GRE launched globally. Quoting from the PC Perspective review, here it is. It has been over 2 years since we last looked at a Radeon GRE, a Golden Rabbit edition card with the Sapphire Post model that looked at providing a sensible price to performance ratio. That 7900 GRE launched at $570. AMD's stock MSRP was $550 and had performance a bit higher than the outgoing 6950 XT. It was also quite a bit less expensive than the next model up, the 7900 XT. Now, the new GRE card that we are examining today is also produced by Sapphire, comes from their Pulse series. These are typically offered around MSRP, so this is a good test of that level of performance. But really, the 9070 GRE is not new silicon. It's still based on Navi 48 that's used in the 9070 and the 9070 XT. However, it has had its memory speed reduced with a narrower memory bus, and the VRAM is also down, giving you 12 gigabytes of RAM and 8 compute units less than the 9070 non-XT. So really, the 9070 GRE exists to help better segment the 9000 series, as the previous lineup had a huge disparity between the 9060 XT and the 9070. As far as value goes versus Nvidia, the 9070 GRE is a respective alternative to the 5070. And most of the tests that we ran were faster overall. The 5070 is typically $630. So, like 10, 20% more for like 5 to 10% more performance. But the real competition comes from Team Red itself, because its MSRP of $550 is the same MSRP as the 9070 allegedly had at launch, although we all know that's usually $600. But even with that in mind, usually doesn't make sense. You would pay 10% more for the extra VRAM and performance. And right when we started recording the Hardware Unbox review for this drop, I looked over it. Steve at Hardware Unbox seemed to say much the same, which is that if it were to go to $500, looks like it's a solid option in the current market, right? But
Sure.
anything above that, and like if I'll let you go, Dan. I'll let you cook. It just doesn't really seem to make sense. But I want to address, like, people are like, how is it the same MSRP? It's because this is an option for them to sell something if they run out of RAM, so they have anything to save on RAM if they need to. Right now, it seems like GDDR6 supply is actually going okay, from what I'm told. But I think they literally launched this as an option. This is a weapon in their arsenal they can deploy if GDDR6 starts to dry up. That's it. It's not very interesting, though. I don't think anyone would recommend it today.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically my thought on this thing. Is the 9070 GRE with 12 gigabytes it's just for the higher amount of RAM with the 9070 alone. Like, if you can find that for $600, which I don't think it's particularly hard to find a model of it for $600. I think it's worth it. And yeah, I guess if the 9070 GRE ends up drifting down to $500, maybe it becomes more of a conversation to have. But other than that, I guess if one exists on the market and one can't exist on the market, they kind of occupy a similar price point. But yeah, the 9070 non-GRE as it exists right now, I think is just a better value. So get that instead if you're looking to spend about $500 to $600 on a GPU. Like, the 9070 GRE just doesn't seem like it has a home in the current market. But like I guess you said, if they have to severely limit RAM, I guess I can see why they might shift more to the 9070 GRE instead of the 9070.
Right, because it has more silicon than the 9060 XT, but it uses less RAM. And if I go to Newegg and look at RX 9060 XT, what is that? So this is for like $450. So yeah, that's $450. And I'm going to be honest, I do really value having 16 gigabytes over 12. So I think what the real takeaway is, the 9070 GRE 12 gigabyte, I would pay 10% more for that than I would for the 9060 XT if I game in 1440p. And I would, if it was 30% less than the 9070, maybe 20%, then I would also maybe get that. But that's what it's for, because I'm looking at Hardware Unbox numbers again, and it averages a tiny bit weaker than a 5070, but actually substantially faster than the 5060 Ti. I mean, it is like 30% faster than that. And you don't need more than 12 gigs probably in 1440p. So again, if right now it's priced like the 5060 Ti will be in wildly faster. So if it can hold its own there while getting cheaper than it is right now compared to the 9070, it's fine. It's an option, but ultimately not that interesting of a product. But again, you can see a situation where GDDR6 supply starts to dry up again. 9070 XT goes closer to 750. They mostly just make 9070 GREs instead of anything else, like the 9070 there in that spot. And they sell 8 gigabyte cards for way, way, way less. Like, it's just giving them that option.
Yeah. And I guess, like, we're criticizing their card for not being competitive against their own card. And I guess AMD's response would be, why do we care? Like, we're going to compare the value of it to our competitors, not our own thing, because we're kind of lapping the competition when it comes to competitive pricing right now.
Yeah, and they are. So the only thing is, I just wish they, because the 9070, not the XT right now in Newegg. Yeah, it's like 600 and up. I just wish they would have the balls to say the 9070 is $600 and the 9070 XT is $700. Because that's really what we're dealing with here for the most part. But whatever. Again, it's an option. Don't buy it today. If it's $500, it's okay. But I would recommend only really for 1440p, because at that resolution is where you have the CPU overhead advantage against Nvidia. It vastly outperforms other things around it at $500, and 12 gigabytes isn't an issue. That's really what it is in a few months, this will be a hidden gem for 1440p gamers that waited for it to go down in price. If it does, that's what it is.
Yeah, I guess that there's always a decent chance that something like this ends up aging well.
Or becoming a good option. I can think of dozens of examples of this. Like, again, we thought the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte was a joke. Then there were some deals with it like at $380. And it's like, okay, well, this is actually kind of a steal now. And maybe that will happen. All right. Let us now move on to story number 4. AMD unveils $329 price point for the Ryzen 7 7700X 3D and brings back the 5800X 3D for $20 more, $349. Quoting here from Tech Power Up before the write-up, AMD today formally relaunched the Ryzen 7 5800X 3D, which will be available from June 25th, and this will be a 10th anniversary edition priced at $350. Next up, the company formally launched the Ryzen 7 7700X 3D. It is positioned between the 5800X 3D and the latest Zen 5 based 9850X 3D, while the 7800X 3D remains discontinued. Available from July 16th. Is when you'll be able to get the 7700X 3D. So, yep, rebranding on strikes again. That said, the 5800X 3D is still a nice option in the current market. 4 of the top 10 selling CPUs on Amazon are Zen 3 after all. And while usually very cheap, Vcache is hugely beneficial on AM4. So having the option for it again will help gamers stuck with AM4 as they won't have to get DDR4 to meaningfully upgrade their performance. But the more important, by far, launch is the 7700X 3D. Again, AMD is restoring a gaming value king into the lineup just for Zen 4 instead of Zen 3. Interestingly, the 7700X 3D has a lower MSRP than the renewed 5800X 3D, becoming the real true budget Vcache chip as of now. And if the MSRP is real, a drop of $40 for the no longer supplied yet still popular 7800X 3D comes in handy when every dollar in a PC builder's budget is determined by memory pricing. So, yeah, I don't have much to say about this. I don't need to get really into why the 5800X 3D costs more. I think it makes sense. They've cornered the cheap, AM4 market. Like, this is where you get to still use DDR4, which is cheaper. Compared to Alder Lake, you can use slower RAM and it'll perform just fine. So they know it. And also, if you're still stuck on AM4 too, and you're looking to upgrade, I think it gives you an option without having to buy expensive RAM. So they can probably charge a slightly higher premium for this than they can for the 7700X 3D, which I think is their option to say, well, this is how you get X3D cheaply on our newer platform. Well, and I also think this is something I was directly told by a source. I don't know. I think it was last summer, so maybe a year ago. But like when they discontinued the 7800, or I mean the 5800X 3D, they just kept selling, the 5500X 3D, the 56, 5700X 3D. People were like, why are they doing this? And what I was told is that they didn't want to bother binning it. Like they just want to bin, does this have 8 or 6 cores? And then they just want to have the 7500X 3D, the 7, like the 55, I should say, because it's Zen 3, the 5500X 3D, and the 5700X 3D. Half of the bins they could have been 5800, but they didn't want to spend the time supporting it and whatever, because ultimately, eventually the price was getting below $300. And if it's below $300, the extra effort to have 2 SKUs, I was directly told wasn't worth it. So I think the same thing's going on here. They don't want to bother binning the 7800X 3D anymore. And so they're just going to throw it all into either the 7500X 3D or the 7700X 3D. And it was worth it to bring back the 5800 and spend the money because of how many people are desperate to not use DDR5 right now. But that's a temporary thing. And that's really all this is. There's really not much else to say. It'll probably get a little cheaper eventually. Well, let's get into this reader mail, actually, because this is what I want to talk about next. Techno writes in and says, I can't be the only one disappointed by the 7700X 3D. I mean, $330 for a CPU which is going to lose in gaming to this 2070K plus. For more money with more multi-core performance just isn't a seller. This just feels like a CPU to upsell you on a higher-end Ryzen. It would be more exciting if it had destroyed 250. So, I'm sorry, I got to get back into this here. People do not buy $300 CPUs for high core counts. And this has just been proven. And so, well, I don't know what price I wish it would have been, but you want to compare it to the 270K plus, which depending on the week is basically the same price as this. And you go, well, that's just going to be better. No, I think they might trade blows in performance. I will say, Dan, I
probably
the 7800X 3D has 5 gigahertz. This is 4.5. So this is actually quite a drop in frequency. And but we don't know. I mean, half of these might be 7800 X3Ds masquerading as a 7700. So they might just hold that boost clock constantly, easily. And in that case, it won't be that much weaker. But the point is, whatever, let's say it's within 5% of the 2070K plus. I would still guess this will on average actually beat the 2070K plus, by the way, for the same price. Right. So same gaming performance, let's say, same price. 270K plus is an obvious choice. You go. Is it? You have to buy the platform. That's a dead platform. And they will both game the same, except one of them's on a dead platform. It actually isn't obvious to people to go with one or the other. And then you go, well, what if someone doesn't upgrade very often and they're a novice? You know, why don't we just recommend the 270K plus? Oh, so they're a novice? Does this novice need 24 cores? Because most novices are going to be using apps that use 8 cores or less.
Yeah,
but that's why it continues to struggle against AMD in sales, because people look at gaming and single core first, and they're basically the same, and then they think of platform longevity, and AMD wins that. So you're choosing: do you want, whatever it is, double the multi-core or more, or do you want platform longevity and the go-to gaming CPU? And
I would say, yeah, from a platform longevity perspective, the one thing I do always want to emphasize with that is, I do have a suspicion that people might I do have a suspicion that people overvalue or put more stock in the idea that their platform longevity is going to impact them than it actually will. Because I bet a lot of people are like, well, I'll get this now and then I'll end up upgrading in 2 or 3 generations, and then they just never end up doing it. And
a lot of people have with AM5 and AM4.
Yeah, I will say, like, if you're getting a 7700 X3D, I think that is, like, aside from like a 7600X or something like that, if you're planning on upgrading at any point, it's one of the CPUs to get, I suppose, because if you're not, I think I would recommend you just spend a little bit more money and get like a 7800 X3D or a 9700 X3D or 9800 X3D. But yeah, I do just always want to say that, like, I do think when people are when they're factoring in platform longevity into their purchasing decision, I do think more people need to really take a cold hard look and think, like, will I actually do this? Is this a thing that's going to impact me? Not to say that that has no value, just to say that I think it has either a lot of value or zero value, depending on the type of person you are.
So,
or
to
very
be honest,
little value.
For me, the biggest argument against getting the 7700 X3D, and we'll have to see, maybe there will be crazy bundles for that one as well. But the best argument I can come up with isn't like, oh, should I get, this more expensive X3D, or say, like, what the thing that kills this for me is the 7500 X3D, because I just went on Micro Center to check. You can get a 850M motherboard, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and the CPU for $300. So for $300, and this is where the argument why I might upgrade later actually breaks down for me for the mid-range products. Either you need the multi-core, and if you do, you don't care that you're going to spend to get a 9950 X3D or something. Like, you're just going to go for that because you use this for work and you want the longevity platform and the fastest multi-threading. Now, either you're probably a person that wants that, or you don't need any of that now. In that case, why do you even need the 7700 X3D? Get this $300 bundle. Get the 7500 X3D now, and then upgrade to a 11950 X3D2 or whatever the heck, Zen 6, Zen 7. Because I'm going to tell you, I don't think you'll notice the gaming difference between a 7500 X3D and a 7700 X3D. And this is $300 right now at Micro Center. And again, like, on Newegg, it's also below $300, so you can save 20%. And in fact, if you really think about it, this is such a hilarious deal. They haven't sponsored this episode. I just actually think it's a good deal. What do you even think you could sell that for in a few years? I bet you could sell for at least $150. So what are you really even losing? Like, if you upgrade, you spent $150 total now and get a new CPU later. I mean, you might almost break even. I don't know.
I will say at a certain point, like, talking about this, like, well, then why does the 7700 X3D exist if, like, the 7500 X3D is such a better value proposition, which I agree with. Is that I do wonder if there are just a lot of people. Well, I bet there are a lot of people that are like, I want 8 cores because I've been told you need 8 cores for gaming. I want X3D and I want it cheap. So they're going to find what's offered there. And even if it's a little stupid to get, which maybe the 7700 X3D is a little bit stupid, like if you actually break down all the other options that exist on the market, people might end up getting it because it saves them, I don't know, $100 on their system, based on like the thing that they think they need to be getting right now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to check the Intel side to be fair. The 270K plus, the 250K plus,
Okay.
I don't see a bundle with the i5 one. If I look for a 270K plus that comes with RAM, you're going to more like $600. Now it comes with more RAM, 32 instead of 16 gigabytes. And I'm not saying this is a bad deal. You're basically getting the motherboard, the CPU, and then the RAM for free. But I think, again, going ultra budget, 7500 X3D with the RAM and the motherboard included, that's just what you go with. I would ignore and again, it's like, I'm going to upgrade. Well, if you're going to upgrade, you don't need more than 6 cores now because you're going to upgrade. So that is what I would go with. And so overall, as much as I tried to make some defense of the 7700 X3D, no, I don't really recommend it. I don't. All right. Let us now move on to story number 5. Speaking of X3D, this piece of content is brought to you by JLC PCB. Innovation starts with an idea, and JLC PCB helps you bring your ideas to life. They handle every step with precision, speed, and at a reasonable cost, especially when it comes to their 6-layer PCBs. On that last point, their 6-layer PCBs allow fast, clean routing and avoid the struggle of squeezing signals onto their usual 2 or 4-layer boards. More routing means more freedom and faster development, fewer redesigns, and therefore quicker project completions. Spend less time fighting routing limits and more time building the actual projects. And 6-layer PCBs are usually expensive, but JLC PCB offers one of the most affordable industry prices. So whether you're a maker, an engineer, or a global hardware company, JLC PCB empowers you to turn your ideas into a reality faster and smarter. Support Moore's Law is dead through the link below. Yes, just clicking on the link below helps the channel a ton, but obviously if you need their services, you can also get a really great price on 6-layer PCBs as well if you follow the directions and use the offer codes and coupons below. So please support Moore's Law is dead at JLC PCB today. AMD Zen 6 X3D B0 Silicon is taped out and is on schedule for early 2027, while Zen 7 and Zen 8 are also on schedule. So for this one, I'm not going to do a big write-up. I'm just going to say that I did a quick leak, quick 10-minute video at the end of last week on Friday. I'll just read the quote that my source told me one more time. My source, this person at AMD, told me, the B0 stepping of Zen 6 Powderhorn is the codename for the high frequency, maybe up to 7 gigahertz or something desktop version, taped out this month being May, and it should be the final stepping. That means it's technically possible to launch by the end of the year. However, that would assume everything goes perfectly. Thus, for now, I'd suggest Q1 2027 is the most likely launch period. But again, Q4 is possible. Oh, and Zen 6 X3D is also in B0, and thus could be a concurrent launch with the rest of the lineup. I also went into the video, in the video, I also went through, it seems like Zen 7 will tape out at the end of this year, I guess. I don't think it's going to launch to desktop, though, until end of 27 or early 28. I think they'll save most of that supply for server at first, from what I can tell. It's very weird. It's like they're going to tape out multiple Zen 7 chiplets end of this year, and then they're like desktop testing a year later. So I don't think they're going to rush it to desktop with that one. And Zen 8, I believe, was 29 or something as well. So they're already planning that. One thing I'll say that I don't know if I said in the video as well is that I also saw recently that they should be doing validation in Q4, maybe October. So
for Zen 6 or Zen 7?
Zen 6, Zen 6 X3D. Okay. So there is a chance they can launch this November or December this year, which I think is very exciting because it sounded like they couldn't, but whatever they're doing, it seems like if they really want to, this thing, I don't think it's going to be like a late next year thing. I think if they really wanted to, they could paper launch a Zen 6 lineup, or at least part of it, right, this year, and definitely roll it out in Q1 next year. So, not that much to it besides what I just said. That's why it was a shorter video, but I think this was a big thing because a lot of people are wondering, and it remain. And another big thing, whenever AMD wants to, Lisa Su can walk on stage and show Zen 6. It's it's done basically. They just need to validate it and make sure this is the final stepping. So that moment where they showed off Zen 2 like half a year before it came out, that moment is actually now. I don't know if she will. Lisa Sue will do this, but they could.
I don't know how much you necessarily benefit, especially in this market, of doing a super early unveiling, because people are just going to speculate how overpriced it's going to be. Not saying it's going to be overpriced, but that's what it's going to start with, and people are going to complain about RAM again. I just don't think.
Yes.
I just don't think we're in the market where
I think the RAM argument is the best argument for not unveiling it. Like even if it is ready this year, even if they do end up launching it in December because RAM prices start coming down,
announce it in November though.
Yeah, announce it when the RAM prices, because it's all just going to be doomer gooning and all of the comments over all of
doomer maxing.
That's all we're going to see if you announce anything now that's expensive. So I wouldn't bother until you have a hold on that. Like even there's an argument to be made. Even if Arrow Lake launches late this year, let them get all the bad press of the cost of RAM and then launch next year. Like, because that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, so I just don't see a reason to announce early or make a big show about announcing early, especially right now. Like, I think when you can end up announcing too early, like what happened with Nvidia, which I guess at a certain point they just kind of needed to announce the N1X, but like they kind of in a lot of ways just showed nothing. And I think there's dubious value to doing that whenever that ends up happening. So yeah, just wait. I think AMD had a bunch of a pretty big gamut of CPUs that they've been launching and unlaunching at all times right now to try and keep up with the insane market we're in right now to some extent. So I don't know. Clear the channel of what people want or have right now, and then show off your big, make your big announcement of Zen 6, which like I think Zen 6 to 7 to 8 has the possibility based on like what you've talked about in your leaks of being like a Zen 1 to 3 moment. Seems like so that might happen in very quick order if all of those steppings come out, or if those steppings are any indication of how in quick succession they could come out with each other or compare.
Yeah, and that's the thing I close on in that video that I put out last week about this as well. Is like ultimately I'm seeing evidence that all of this could come out like they could
2 years period,
go back
like
to 1 to 1.5 year cadence.
Yeah,
you know, like 3 years, all these come out. Yeah, I guess that is how math would work. Yeah. But it's up to Intel. Does Nova Lake really impress? Does Razor Lake actually manage to launch just 1 year after Nova Lake? Does Hammer Lake come out in a timely fashion with SMT that works great again, and the elimination of E-cores, and it's all effective? All of that, if that happens, yeah, look, I think if AMD really wants to, Zen 6 could launch end of this year, Zen 7 end of next year, Zen 8 2 years after that. I think they could do that if they wanted to, but it's up to competition for that, and really up to this AI bubble too, if they would even bother doing that. Because another thing that was consistent, I guess is the last thing, is they are like the nodes they're using. They're going to like the most advanced 2 nanometer, then 14A. I don't think I know Zen 8's node yet, but like who knows? It could be sub 10 angstrom or something for all we know, or whatever. Like they're just going with the most expensive and most advanced nodes every time now. So I think that's another thing where if the AI bubble's still going, they'll be like, do we really want to use those chiplets for that? But in the gamer space, maybe for server, but maybe not for desktop. Nothing writes in. Did you see AMD's announcement of a $10 billion investment in the Taiwan ecosystem partners? The ASC and SPIL component of the investment explicitly mentions Venice and Zen 6, and I'm taking it as essentially confirming your leak that SPIL is doing the bridge die packaging for Zen 6. Yep. Honestly, this is one of those announcements where like I'm scrolling and I see it and I'm like, oh, there it is again.
Boop, boop.
But yes, no, I know. It's entirely confirmed now. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That Zen 6 is configured exactly like we've been saying for quite a while. All right. Nothing writes in again. I believe you've said that AMD has leapfrogging CPU design teams. They do. Does that mean there's a chance that Zen 6 won't have the 2-head branch predictor that Zen 5 has? No, they
communicate.
They not as much as you'd think, apparently. Actually, it's a lot of their issues.
Okay.
But no, they communicate. I don't think they're going to go backwards on I don't think it's like Intel where they communicate so little they forget to keep AVX.
That they're not the same company almost.
Yeah, like the Zen 6 team is the Zen 4 team, and so they'll take over the advancements from Zen 5. But I think that's why you can really bet on them to do very well this time. And remember, then the Zen 5 team was the Zen 2 team. So even though Zen 5 didn't turn out as well as we wanted, Zen 2 wasn't bad. I mean, so like Zen 7 still has promise. All right. Speaking of things that do not have promise, let us now move on to the next story with story number 6. Steam Deck and Steam Deck OLED prices increased to $789 and $949 respectively. So I'll just read the press release from Steam. Steam Deck OLED is back in stock with a price increase for both models due to rising memory and storage costs. The Steam Deck OLED 512 gigabyte, which was I think that was $550. It's now $789. The Steam Deck OLED 1 terabyte was $650 and is now $300 more, $949. Valve says Steam Deck itself hasn't changed. These new prices reflect the current state of component costs and other global logistical challenges across the industry as a whole. We'll keep you updated if anything changes. Although at the end of the day, that can't be true. AMD's revenue is up in gaming, and a lot of it, they say, and if you don't think they're lying, then sue them for misleading investors, is due to high Radeon sales. Furthermore, we have multiple articles that have stated this. Their own press releases have stated this. We also see the MSRP going down despite increased shipments, meaning that they are passing along decreased GDDR6 prices to the consumers, managing to get closer to MSRP despite being in times of shortage. In addition to that, we also know that the Nintendo Switch 2, yes, got a price increase of 10%, not $300, to $500. But also at the same time, Nintendo is increasing production at $500, meaning they think that price is probably sustainable. If they didn't, they would do a limited run at $500 and then wait and hope that prices go down. And then that's when they'd ramp up production, especially considering sales are slowing with the Switch 2. So they're doing this thinking this is not the worst time to do it. And then we also have numerous examples of OEMs making a stronger PC than like the Steam machine, which we think is going to be more than the Steam Deck for like $700. So all of this is to say that this is only due to market conditions is bullshit. This is a result of Steam not planning ahead, not negotiating long-term contracts, and being caught entirely with their pants down. I'm sorry, there's no other thing I can conclude here. Yes, costs are up, but the PS5 went up, 30% over 6 years. This jarring increase, from what I can tell, they're getting RAM for the same price. I can buy the chips on eBay. And that tells you they have no ability to negotiate, no ability to plan, and they deserve half of the blame here for just not being prepared for the future, because frankly, we knew this was going to happen before the worst RAM prices hit.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, like I do, like Valve, you're an incredibly powerful and influential company. I know you're not the biggest company on the planet, like just from a headcount perspective. So maybe some of these deals are hard to negotiate. And like there's this much touted like flat hierarchy that exists at Valve, but maybe that's not the right way to go about things, because Valve seems like a completely disorganized company that really can't stick to any long-term projects a lot of the time. And maybe that like to some extent is like the way they operate plays into how successful Steam has been, because like there's a bunch of like small little projects that they are constantly injecting into the ecosystem that is Steam. Maybe it doesn't work for being a hardware manufacturer though, because
not one where price matters, and a console is all about the price.
Yeah, because like I will say, I think the Steam Deck here did something really impressive.
Yes. Me and Dan are huge fans.
No, I'm saying with this new price, where the Steam Deck instantly went from, I think, the most recommendable handheld, that or the Switch if you want. Yeah, I mean, that or the Switch probably, or Switch 2, I should say. And went to, you should buy almost any handheld on the market other than the Steam Deck. Like overnight, it just flipped. So good on you. I don't know why you restocked this, Valve. Like just let the Steam Deck die on a high note if this is what it's going to turn into.
Yeah, and to be clear, I polled the Moore's Law's Dead community, and 75% of you roughly said that they shouldn't have even bothered. And so, yeah, that's also what my opinion was. I asked everybody before I made that video, I guess it was still less than a week ago, put out 2 videos last week, saying that if this is any indication of the price for the Steam machine, which I expect it to be like 30% more. I think sadly, as Bradley confirmed that was going to be the plan, probably too.
Well, how wouldn't it be an indication of the price of the Steam machine? Like,
well, but like also we expect it to cost more than the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
That they just shouldn't bother. Like this makes no sense. It's like someone's gonna fart out that it's form factor. Okay, I'll make a good form factor for less money. I can make an ITX build for less than whatever the Steam machine is gonna cost if it is priced in line with the Steam Deck. I'm sorry, like it just no one is paying twice the price for the form factor, dude. Like,
I don't think it's going to be.
Unless you're just a rabid fanboy.
I don't think it's going to be 6 times more than the Steam Deck, but like, form factor isn't everything, or form factor.
And I can make a PC just as big. What are we even talking about?
Yeah, I know.
I can buy a Minis Forum RTX 5060 16 core for the same price, probably. Like, what? That's going to be like 50% higher performance.
It really is starting to get to a point with the Steam machine, like where do we need to like go back into like 7 months ago, back in time and just slap ourselves? Like, what the hell were we thinking that the Steam machine was so impressive? Like we
all thought it would be priced somewhat reasonably compared to the Steam Deck. Like it would be like, because there's also the non-OLED Steam Deck. There was like they were selling it for what, like $330 refurbished. Like, it's like, oh, well, maybe this will be 500 or 600, and they just no planning at all.
But what I mean by that, though, is like barring like the idea that it's going to be decently priced, like the Steam machine really doesn't do anything that's special. It's old hardware. It's, again, like I've said a million times, a box that I think looks nice, but that's about it. And it's the debut of SteamOS on for a
that will be
PC
probably the
platform.
Most interesting thing.
And but those are almost separate things. At a certain point, I'm still interested in SteamOS, and I hope they give Windows a run for their money because I am tired of Windows. But those are different things. And at a certain point, like I think the only thing we really should be all that excited about with this stupid ass Steam machine is if it's also hides a good launch of the SteamOS in it.
Right. That's what we're going to be looking for, I guess. I agree. It's like, does this prove that SteamOS itself is actually continuing to evolve in a great way and like is going to lead to greater things in the future? Because, that's really all there is to be interesting, because there's no point in getting something weaker than a PS5 for double the price of a PS5 6 years after the PS5 came out. I'm sorry, people. Like, you're not going to brainwash me. All right? I would say the same thing about Sony, Microsoft. I mean, God, I slammed the Asus ROG Xbox Ally X for being poor value compared to the Steam Deck. Now the Steam Deck's the same price. Okay, well now the Steam Deck, if I thought that was dumb, I think this is twice as dumb. So I'm not anything but consistent. And just to really nail this home, by the way, I do want to pull up here. Let me see here. Comparison tweet. I did a comparison to the Switch 2 because I saw people saying on Twitter, like, well, you know what though, if you still have a big Steam library, you should still probably buy the Steam Deck. And I'm like, no, only someone who already has their Steam Deck would say that, because here's what you can get. Because technically the Switch 2 is still $450. So right now for a $450 Switch 2, I can also get with it Resident Evil 9, the new 007, Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, Donkey Kong, Dynasty Warriors, Kirby AR, Star Fox, and Pragmata for roughly the same price as the Steam Deck with no games. So if you tell me, well, it has Steam, I'll just rebuy my whole fucking Steam library and save money.
Yeah.
It's insane. It is an insane, just idiotic price, and it makes you look stupid. It looks so, and we hounded Microsoft, and they're like, the Series X is $800. Well, this is more than that.
Yeah.
This is just a joke.
No.
I mean, what you like, how brainwashed? Like, if people are arguing with me, it's like, you're not going to convince me. It should cost the same as the Xbox handheld, or twice as much as a PlayStation, or so. Like, no, you're not going to convince me.
No, I mean,
did you hear yourselves?
I guess the most pro Steam argument or Steam Deck argument like that, I guess if you're basing off of prior things we've said, is just don't buy any handheld now. Like I guess that's where it's coming to, or or don't buy any handheld that's not a Switch 2. I guess would be the argument you'd make, because yeah, this really just made the Switch 2 stand out in a league of its own.
Yeah, I mean, let me say, let me put one timestamp here for this as well, because I do want to point something out here. Now, I believe it's sold out, though. And this is where people would go, oh, well, you see, this is the new normal. Derp, derp, derp. Guys, we don't know how many they made. I mean, for all we know, they just put for sale 10,000 units after they had some interns buy up RAM from eBay. Because again, from what I can tell, they paid eBay prices. Like individual dudes selling RAM chips he took off a board. That's how much they're paying for this RAM. And it might be to test the waters. I told this theory to you offline, Dan, and I think this could be true. That I still think it was a mistake, because what a wave of bad PR to have this next to the mega yacht purchased by Gabe. I mean, it makes you look so stupid. It's such bad optics. But there's a chance they're like, all right, we f***ed up. We should have bought the RAM RAM prices double last year, and we should have just bought them. And instead we waited, and now they're like 3-4 times what we would have paid. We now need to decide, are we going to launch this thing at $1,200? Or are we going to do some weird strategy where there's like a limited run and most of it's bare bones, or we delay it till next year? And I think they may have just done a run and then they're going to time how fast it's sold out. And they're like, oh, it did sell out instantly. So maybe our rabid fans will buy it if it's very low volume. Or I think there's a chance they just did this to gather data. And so I still have a tiny bit of hope, although I don't know that I would call it hope. I'm just throwing the idea out there that perhaps they're testing this and then they will adjust from there. Who knows? And maybe I've heard as well that the micro SSD, because it's like a half length one or something that's in the Steam Deck, that the supply on that is much more limited right now. Someone told me that like a week ago. And so who knows? Maybe it's not just the RAM. Like maybe they just can't get the SSDs and they had to they were crazy gouged for the SSDs they're putting in this. There's a chance. I just want to throw that out there.
Crossing my fingers so that's the case, I guess.
Yeah, but I hope that's the case, because again, and this is where we need to say this, guys, we're huge Steam stans. Like we glazed the shit out of the Steam machine when it was announced. My thumbnail was titled Xbox Hell. Like I was like, Series S is done. Xbox, who cares? They have a budget offering that people will just flock to before the Helix is even out. I guess back then we called it Magnus. But we change our opinions with changing information. And this is just a very bad price. It just is. But we're not haters of Steam. I'm still very interested to see how the Steam frame pans out. And I think that's something they can charge more money for, because it's kind of without competition.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
That's not this. This is not without competition. This is nothing but competition.
Yeah, I suppose in that salvo of announcements they made, there are still 3 interesting things to come out of it, with the Steam frame, the Steam controller 2, and Steam OS for desktop. I guess we'll continue to see how those develop, even if I think the Steam machine should be canceled or very low volume and something that is basically used as an advertisement for Valve that they end up losing money on, because that's the only way they can launch it at a certain point without having this huge wave of negative PR. Like if they're as bad at securing deals as the Steam Deck is suggestive of. I guess that. But
and I want to make a pitch here, a plea to Valve to show, like, if they are, and it sounds like they are, considering launching this for $1,000 or more, the Steam machine that is. I've never before seen in the comments people hating on Gabe. They literally make gifs of him and memes of him wearing the Pope's outfit. Like they call him a saint to PC gaming. And yet now my comment section and what I see on Twitter is littered with Gabe is greedy, Gabe sucks, F Steam. This is a real damage to your brand. Like it really is. And it could stick a little bit, especially if Helix were to come out for $1,000 with 10 times the performance. And they actually have a working Microsoft store. and it runs Steam, but people just end up buying now from the Microsoft store because they just have a bad taste in their mouth. This really has done damage to your brand. I've never seen people ever say critical things in the comments about you. Now I see it all the time. Understand that if you can't afford to mass produce the Steam machine at a reasonable price, then don't make it as mass produced as it was planned to. And guys, it is for PR. Do a run of 50,000 of them, whatever, lose a couple $100 on each one. That's $1 million. That's not even that's a rounding error on Gabe's yacht. Like, and just do that. Maybe have bare bones or not, and then do another run when RAM prices come down. Because if you just did even 50,000 and it was a reasonable price and it worked really well, it would be 50,000 acolytes going around telling everybody how awesome the Steam machine is. And it just sucks they couldn't make a lot of them right now. Because ultimately, you're not going to make money on this anymore. You're not. You missed the boat. You're not. You're not going to sell 10 million of these for $1,500. You're not going to. You could sell 50,000 for 700, get a bunch of good PR, and then do another production run when people are desperate when you get a good deal. That, because that's it. The best you're going to get out of the Steam machine at this point is a PR saving win. You're not going to make a lot of money on it. If you have to sell the Steam Deck for $950, clearly, this is never going to be about making a lot of money for you. And it probably never was, in my opinion, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it can still be a decent advertising opportunity for them. It advertises Steam. It advertises Steam OS, which is a vehicle for Steam. And maybe later down the road, they can launch a Steam Machine 2, or they can do a larger run of this once RAM prices are more sensible.
Magnolis Raikusis writes, and it says, Valve's pitching the Steam Machine as 3 times the performance of the Steam Deck. Would you think they'll do it for only 1.5 times the price? No, I don't know. I honestly can't even tell you what I think the price will be. I have no clue. I could see it still being somehow less than the Steam Deck because they course correct and it's like $800 at that price. I guess we'll have a conversation. I still think it's too much. I could see it being $1,500. I don't know. My guess is 1,000 or 1,200 at this point, but I don't know. I still hold out hope that they find a way to do at least a limited run at a lower price because it doesn't make sense otherwise.
Yeah, 1,500 seems steep to me, but I mean, I would have never guessed that this would have been they would have ever tried to sell this for $950. So who the hell knows? I guess $1,300 would be my guess, but we'll see.
Yeah, like the price for the Steam Deck OLED is so wild that I honestly don't know if like we'll just be surprised and the Steam machine will be a little cheaper because the price doesn't make sense to me. So yeah. I don't know if there's just like they couldn't get the screens. They could or like they were like we just have to get something, and then they bought at the exact worst moment and did a limited run and then stopped once they got a new contract. I don't know. You know, maybe it will still be a reasonable price, but this price is so ridiculous. I'm kind of done talking about the price. I don't know what anything is anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Carmen Cry writes in and says, with Valve going mask off as yet another bumbling company, will gamers finally choose the vibrant and multilateral ecosystem of Steam, EGS, and GOG as first order stores, or will we remain locked in Gaben's ecosystem jail? Look, they have a stranglehold, and they have a stranglehold for a good reason on their store. I don't think
Steam isn't suddenly bad now.
No, but I will say there's opportunity. If PlayStation and Xbox really hit a home run next gen, there will be more people curious for getting off PC than otherwise, because Valve has to think about this. This is a bad time to overcharge in your ecosystem. If the PlayStation 6 is announced for $650, the handheld's $550, and almost half the price of the Steam Deck. Helix is announced for $1,000, and it works really well with how they did their store and everything on the Xbox. Like, we've seen people who predominantly do PC gaming flock to console and back and forth. Yes, a lot of people will stay on Steam, but in a world where RAM kits are $300, $500, you know, and Nvidia doesn't make graphics cards anymore. Like, in that world, you're not. I wonder if Gabe, you're not making the pitch for the Steam machine as this is why you buy our console. This is why you don't abandon PC. Because I see a lot of people in the comments saying, if the PS6 or Helix are a good price, I'm piecing out. And I wonder if Valve needs to think about that too with some of their products. It's like, how do you get people to stay on your ecosystem? Because it's not just about the price of your device. It's also everything else connected to Steam gaming right now is getting more expensive. and you're at a real disadvantage here if the competition exploits that. All righty. Let us now move on from this story. Making fun of me going Dan with that face. With story number 7. Jessie here really can't take it when she sees rabbits out in the wild. I'm not kidding. She wants to chase them so much that she starts visibly shaking while she stares at them. And honestly, I'm kind of the same when it comes to overpriced Microsoft software. I can't believe that some people, especially in these times where many component costs are inflated, would waste hundreds of dollars overpaying for Microsoft Office or Windows. And you don't have to if you go to CDkeyoffer.com. That's right, CDkeyoffer.com is a sponsor of this piece of content, and they are, I believe, the longest running main, large sponsor for Moore's Law is Dead, going all the way back when I lived in a different state. And that's because they provide reliable keys for Microsoft Office Professional and for Windows 11. And, they also have an offering of a ton of different games that you can get on a discount as well. And if you want to support the channel, then go to cdkeyoffer.com today through the link in the description. Just clicking on that link helps. But then also get yourself these keys if you need them and save by using offer code BrokenSilicon to save 25% on all Microsoft software, and then Die Shrink to save 3% on everything else on the website. Once again, thanks to cdkeyoffer.com for sponsoring yet another, maybe 1,000th piece of content that they've sponsored. And thank you all for supporting a sponsor that supports Moore's Law is Dead. Confirmed, Sony is serious about exclusives next gen. Quoting from a couple of stories I threw together from Tech Power Up. It seems as though the remakes will continue until morale improves, with Nate the Hate 2 on social media platform X substantiating a rumor that Sony was exploring and considering reviving some older unused IPs, suggesting that there will likely wouldn't be franchise or IPs that have new entries since the PlayStation 1, 2, or potentially 3 eras. A separate leak purports to reveal the first franchise revisit is already in development, although under a different studio than the original. That framing's a little off, I would say. That it's like that if you're remaking things from the PS3 era, I don't know how much this is the same as remaking The Last of Us 3 times. But according to VGC journalist Jordan Miller on the VGC podcast, there is an infamous thing happening somewhere else in PlayStation, and he capitalized the F in it, implying that Sucker Punch will not be involved in the new game. The journalist did not share his source or comment further about which studio will be working on the game, but by the sounds of things, it will be a new entry into the franchise, not a remake per se. At the same time, Sony recently shuttered Bluepoint. Yada, yada. Bluepoint's sad. He also mentioned that there are still single-player PC ports in development at Sony, which may eventually launch depending on how far they are in development, but that these ports are no longer a priority for the Japanese gaming giant. Addressing the questions about the justification for the strategy shift, Nate the Hate 2 commented that, while there have been a few commercially successful PC ports, they haven't been a huge revenue driver for Sony. Looking at the Steam charts data for Insomniac Games, one of Sony's most notable first-party studios, the data lends credence to these comments. The best performing PC port from the studio is Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered, which peaked at 66,000 players on Steam. Meanwhile, the next best performer was Spider-Man 2, which peaked at 28,000. That's really bad. Nix's Software, the studio responsible for many Sony PC ports, has seen similar success with the likes of Ghost of Tsushima, charting at 77,000 peak players, ahead of the aforementioned Spider-Man Remaster. Forbidden West and The Last of Us Part 2 going to 40 and 31,000 players respectively. Also, there's an article here that Sony is finally mad at Naughty Dog for not getting more games out on time. Good.
God.
But the point is, and I think Tom Henderson had a tweet about this, it's confirmed. Sony is pivoting back to exclusives next gen. And there's a suggestion here. This thing that I discussed with Colin Moriarty, they might be doing this thing where they outsource their IP to tons of studios. It's something Colin proposed to me on Sacred Symbols, and then I think I said it again on one of the recent Broken Silicons or live streams. Like, if you have this catalog of like 30 different IPs and you're only really using 5 or 10 of them right now, put out a bat signal and say, hey, who wants to bid on this? Anyone want to try making any of these games? And who knows what will happen? You could get, like, let me think, like, let's say all of a sudden the people that made Deep Rock Galactic come in, and they're like, oh, well, we want to try to make, this one IP you haven't made since PlayStation. We want to make Parappa the Rappa. We want to make a new Patapon. Let these studios, let DICE come in and make a new SOCOM. If you don't have the time to do it yourself, why would you not do this?
Yeah, I mean, Sony is sitting on a lot of unused IP at this point, and I don't hate that Sony rotates through its IP and doesn't, like, I know people love it, but like Nintendo kind of being the Mario Zelda platform doesn't appeal to me that much, because I think there at a certain point there's a little bit too much, especially Mario. But you know, Sony's sitting on a ton of IP. I would love to see another Killzone come out. I would love to see another SOCOM come out. I would love to see another Infamous come out, like they is referenced in the story. I'm sure a ton of people would be excited about. Like, what else is there? Slide, Cooper, Ape Escape. I'm sure some people would be super excited about a new Ape Escape game. So yeah, I mean, trying to put more of that IP that they've been sitting on for anywhere between like 10 and like 15 years with nothing really to it. Yeah, that would be great. You mentioned Patapon. I would love if a new Patapon came out.
Yeah, I know they just remastered them too for the PS5. So that's
Maybe,
often like they did with Sly Cooper, them testing the waters to see if people care, you know.
yeah.
But I don't know what else there is really to say here. I think it's been criminal how Sony has handled their exclusives this generation. Some of it's understandable. Again, for everyone that points out Concord, which was a fuck up, and all of these problems that Herman Hulst has had, maybe look at Xbox. How have they been doing with their exclusives? I mean, even Nintendo, like the follow-up Zelda was just the same Zelda again.
Yeah.
And Mario Kart World did not get great reviews and was $80. Like, everyone struggled, I think.
Yeah,
after COVID to keep stuff going well.
Yeah, we've definitely been in a weird period, especially with exclusives of these companies shepherding their exclusive their exclusive IP and their first party studios. So like I know we talk about you mentioned in the story that Sony is mad at Naughty Dog, and I get why Sony's mad at Naughty Dog. They're kind of the crown jewel of Sony at this point, them or Insomniac. I think Naughty Dog would probably be the better candidate for that, where Insomniac might be the workhorse they abuse a little bit. But I'm glad that they're pissed at Naughty Dog. But on the other side of that, I think there's a give and take to it. Sony had this big ass initiative of doing live service games. A ton of them got canceled, including a Naughty Dog live service game that I was personally excited for, and I think would have been good. I don't think that completely excuses the complete lack of output from Naughty Dog over the past 6 years, but
no, not at all.
It's something. I mean, it's at least a half development game from them, and yeah, I hope after this happened, I can't even remember the name of their new game that's coming out, because
something Galactic. It's like
I think it has I think it has a relatively bad name. I'm sure it'll be a good game. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a good game, because I've yet to play a Naughty Dog game I dislike, but bad name. Naughty Dog's output needs to be way higher next generation. Like, if they don't get out at least 2 games next generation, what the hell are you doing? I think 2 games is a pretty small ask, honestly. But yeah, they need to get that out. And that needs to happen with a lot of their studios, because a lot of them have been way, way too slow.
So it's exciting. Again, and to the people that say it's evil to have exclusives, I say, look, I'm just going to call a spade. We had more exclusives last gen, and we had way more exclusives with PS360. And there were just more games. It was a force multiplier. You know, Killzone was kind of supposed to be a Halo killer. It wasn't, but it was a great game that I enjoyed playing. Forza Motorsport was supposed to be a Gran Turismo killer, and it almost kind of actually ended up becoming that. But Gran Turismo still exists, so we have 2 great racing games to choose from. Who cares if one's not on all platforms? At least we have more to choose from. And it's very clear that in a world where there are more exclusives, people were creating things to compete with each other that wouldn't exist otherwise. And I just want more games, guys. And I look, the business model dictates that putting it on more platforms doesn't always work as well. And for the amount of time they put into porting and supporting all these other studios, how many of these could be used to remaster PS1 games, or just would they have a sequel out by now? And
yeah,
I think it's clear that the all multi-platform thing it hasn't worked. You can make some games multi-platform, but to just make everything that it doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about everything being anti-consumer these days, but just to, I don't know, accentuate your point, I do think people consider that era of hyper competitiveness with exclusives, or just having tons of exclusives, including some that like I'm not a huge fan of, like the way like BioShock exclusivity works out, like those timed exclusives or bought exclusivity that really doesn't contribute to the development of the game. Generally not a huge fan of, but that is, I think, largely considered one of the golden age of video gaming, that like 2007 to 2016, 15 period. And that was a time of tons of exclusives.
So yeah, more is more. And I don't care if they get there by it being exclusive. I just want more. All right. Let us now move on to the final story of many stories this episode, with story number 8. Asha steps in it with the PlayStation logo and Xbox showcase. Now, I'm going to be honest here. I normally wouldn't think this was the biggest deal. I normally wouldn't have covered this unless other people did. But oh boy, was there conversation. So I'm just quoting Asha on Twitter. Seeing the feedback on logos, it was a miss, and I own it. We are talking about how we adjust for future Xbox shows. I believe all that happened is they showed the PlayStation logo during one of the games they showed off. And I think it may have been Halo Campaign Evolved, if I'm not mistaken, because that will also be on PS5. And do you have any thoughts, Dan? Because sometimes we talk about things because other people do. And this blew up.
I really don't know how much I have to. I don't know. Like I mostly missed this until it was included as a story. And I mean, this is a thing I don't really care that much about, but I don't know. People get pissed, and I know this upset a lot of Xbox fans. Maybe the fact that I'm less incensed by it is the fact that I care less about Xbox as a brand, quite frankly. But
yeah, I mean, I guess it's good they admitted they did something wrong. I don't know. I think the reason it felt like a stab in the back to a lot of the biggest fans is Asha was throwing out some red meat, like suggesting that they would be more moving towards more exclusives. And seeing this makes you go, nothing's changing, is it? They're still going to.
Is she Phil Spencer too? Like,
I did remember correctly. I just checked it. Yeah. So they showed, I guess, the PlayStation logo with Halo Campaign involved. I guess when they showed the platforms, PlayStation was one of the ones shown. I don't consider that a huge deal, but I actually do agree. I don't know why they showed it.
And I guess being more critical, I guess thinking about it, like, maybe if you're going to do this, don't make it be Halo, the one you show it off with, like that's their marquee franchise. Like, it's either that or Forza, probably. I would say are their two most, or at least those are the two franchises I personally think I associate most with Xbox. So I get why it feels like a stab in the back, especially like after there's all of this animosity towards Phil Spencer after he tries to be like this big friendly, like, we're an open tent guy platform that turns out to have gone really south. Yeah, not signaling that you're about to be like that again as the new head of Xbox, especially with their big marquee franchise, like easily the most Xbox franchise there is out there. Yeah. Maybe, I don't know, maybe do it with like Fable or something, or maybe Fable is too heavily,
or just don't do it. Like, there's no need
at all.
I think the thing that I agree with most is it was called an Xbox showcase. It's kind of silly.
Yeah, that's fair.
It just feels odd. And I'm looking here. Another reason some people think that this was a big screw up is, I guess, Matt Booty, who I don't know how that guy still has a job and got a promotion. Apparently he responded to the feedback online with, hey, we're committed to showing competing platforms, which people didn't take well. But then they didn't like that Asha walked that back, because a lot of people, I think, are worried, all you're doing is dragging out the truth. The truth is Helix might be a solid device that has backwards compatibility with older Xbox games and thus rewards fans for being committed for all of these years and having a good option for the future. But you're probably not going to have any exclusives. And when you just backtracked here, you're giving them, they're going to be even more mad when it's not an exclusive in the future. I think that is kind of where I land, where it's like, look, Asha, if you're actually going to have a couple exclusives that aren't on PlayStation, okay, this statement made sense. But if you announce Halo 8 or whatever the heck they're on now, and it has maybe not a PlayStation logo in the trailer, but it launches to PlayStation 6, you're just going to make them even more mad after you keep kind of letting them hear what they want to. You're letting them hear what they want to hear, but is it the truth?
Yeah, I mean, it almost goes back to like this thing we've been talking about with Sony and their confusing messaging on like or lack of clarity with their messaging on like what games will and won't come to PC. In a lot of ways, I think like the muddled messaging is worse than like even a negative story, because when it's muddled, it's just, this becomes a thing people endlessly talk about because they're confused about what's happening. And if you just rip off a Band-Aid of a story that people don't like and stick to that being your story, maybe it blows over faster than, like you said, just extending this out over weeks where it almost feels like you're watching an internal fight going on at Xbox right now that they've accidentally turned into an external one.
Which again, my guess, or what I would do if I worked there, is it's hard to get the messaging right for the biggest fans because they want you to say there'll be exclusives. But I don't think you have exclusives with Helix. Maybe brief timed ones just because it was done first, like a week, it's an exclusive. What you do is you just say runs best on Helix. Like this program from the ground up for Helix. Yes, it's ported to the Steam store. Maybe it is, maybe not actually. And yes, it will come out on PlayStation 6, but this is best played on Helix. Don't get a different graphics card. Get the Xbox Helix, because I mean, we built this game not worrying about if someone has a 3060 and can't run this well. Like, I think that marketing works. Runs best on Helix. It feels kind of like an exclusive, and it feels special, well, without really abandoning the truth that you just don't really care about exclusives anymore. Like, just rip off the Band-Aid, but make it still feel special. Carbon Cry writes in, oh, no, he does not. Let's see here. I just scrolled up for no reason. Carbon Cry does not write in. Jensen Wing writes in and says, Tom and Dan, Xbox One did have a plan for disc games to be licensed, and it was part of the whole here is how you share your game on PS4 ad being so killer. I don't know how it would ever work for 360 or the original Xbox, but with Xbox One discs, maybe they already kind of had a system up and running that they killed before the console launched. Is that how they could do backwards compatibility with discs with Xbox Helix? So I guess what he's suggesting is, and I do now remember this, I actually forgot. Xbox One was announced, you put the disc in and it's locked to your account. Could this be a system where you put an Xbox One disc in and it is, or a Series disc in, and now it is locked to that Helix and you download it to run on it? Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I guess that would work. Like the way they said it worked with that, like the disc is your license. I don't know if they would want to like turn that, somehow convert it into a digital license, but
right. Yeah. And it's a one-time lock to this account thing. And that disc will no longer work on Helix. Maybe it would still work on the original Xbox, but it will no longer work on this. Well, I think you'd have to kill it on 360 then. They'd have to, and they probably could. They could say, oh, this license was transferred. This disc, throw it away. It doesn't work on 360 anymore. You can't resell it. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's a way of doing it. Honestly, people keep asking about this and I don't have any thoughts. I'm like, I don't know. I think you're just going to put the disc in and it's going to work, but probably wrong.
Yeah. That might just be how it works, unless there's some weird licensing agreements that causes issues for whatever reason. I don't really know why it would, but
Chris Rich writes in and says, well, we don't know exactly what Microsoft will be doing with Magnus and Project Helix. Let's say that they released Windows laptop versions using the same hardware. How interested would you yourselves be in buying such a thing? Would you ever consider an N1X based Windows laptop instead? If it's a good price and performs well, sure. Of course, we voiced quite a bit of skepticism early here. I don't think it will be a good price. Well, would I buy an Xbox Magnus laptop?
I'd be more likely than the N1X,
yeah.
I guess. But
What's the price? Right?
I mean, I think this isn't me hating on Magnus in any way, but I think it's probably a SoC that like I'm not likely to get, not for any reason.
Maybe the
like,
mid-range graphics card version.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe, but it's just like not for any reason other than like I just probably won't get it. But yeah,
right, because you already have a Hawk Point 3050 laptop. You don't really care.
Yeah, if it was in a good enough product, oh yeah, Phoenix. If it was well priced and in a good laptop, I wouldn't say don't buy it though.
Right, like when I think about this, you know, this is going to be something like 50% faster, I think, than Medusa Halo, but with a substantially weaker CPU than Medusa Halo. I don't know if I'd really care about that. I don't know if I need whatever. I don't even remember. Was it like 36 cores or something insane? Like, I don't know if I need that with Medusa Halo. So if there was a Medusa Halo laptop and it was $3,000, and then there was the Xbox laptop and it was 1,500 or something, yeah, I don't know, maybe, right? Maybe I would. Problem is, I already have Strix Halo, so I don't really care. I know I'm not going to be interested probably until Zen 7 stuff, because this is wildly better than anything I need. It crushes every game on the screen it comes with. So,
yeah.
All right, now let us move on to the wrap up here, which is actually also quite extensive. Right, this one here is pretty important. Let me open this up. I want to make sure. So Amazon, I already brought it up. Amazon has reportedly scrapped its internal AI leaderboard as a cost sword, with a senior executive telling staff, don't use AI just to use it. Now, this is hilarious because they were basically incentivizing people to use AI, a leaderboard. You would get paid more money if you were using AI more while you worked. They burned a ton of tokens, and now they're suggesting not to do it. I think this is maybe starting to come to a head where they realize that, like, once it's not subsidized, it is not worth using for most people. Some people it will be, but it's not as mainstream, which, by the way, I think is funny. That means that, I think, again, like I keep saying, Gemini is the most positioned for it. They're just finding a way to make search more efficient. I think it would make sense for Google to keep using it. Mm-hmm. It does not make sense, though, for $20 a month with ChatGPT. And it only makes sense for Claude if it's for like programmers that really know what they're doing. Anyone else, it's not worth the time or the tokens.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people that keep having AI pushed at workplaces won't be mad to hear this, because, yeah, a lot of AI is just, I feel like, pointlessly being shoved into everything. But
Florida is suing OpenAI over it being a harm to kids. I agree. I think all the social media companies should be taken to court. This isn't that, yeah, but it's kind of in the same bucket of hurting youth.
Yeah, I don't remember all the companies these AI agents or these AI chatbots are associated with, but there are a few like teenage suicides associated with mental health crises caused, or probably you would say exasperated by AI chatbots. So makes sense.
And there just is no controls here. Yeah. Lisa Su was booed for mentioning AI, although she goes on to say that AI can never like replace your decision making. It actually says some pretty good stuff, but that just tells you how mad people are about AI, because they've been booing everyone who mentions AI.
Yeah, I've seen
at commencement speeches, and it's actually pretty hilarious half the time. But people hate it so much that even when she was trying to make a not fully pro AI point, they were just so ready to boo. But I didn't want to throw out there, at least she didn't do like a brain rot take on it.
Yes, from what I read, it was better than a lot of the other commencement speech AI takes I've seen, where
there's one where they were like, deal with it. It's insane.
Yeah, like that's the message.
These are 22-year-olds, dude. Come on.
That's the message you want to spread at a commencement speech is, I'm taking your jobs, deal with it.
Yeah, it's like, what? Also, NVIDIA's Vera CPU kind of sucks, by the way. Like, what they showed off barely beats two 64-core Zen 5s. That's before we talk about the fact that there are, as a single socket 192 core this could be competing with that would destroy this, nor that Vera isn't shipping yet. Venice is being produced right now. This is going to compete with Venice.
Yeah, I mean, that's a problem Nvidia, I think, has had with a lot of their launches or announcements is they're not competing with the things they're saying they're competing with in these benchmarks or these head-to-heads.
Yeah, and it's because Venice is 256 cores, so that's double the core counts of these two CPUs it's comparing itself to put together with higher IPC, probably wildly higher clocks. Whatever, man. It again, like so far, their CPU, if you compare it to the thing it's actually going to compete with, NVIDIA CPUs aren't that impressive. They're just there to connect the GPUs, and you get it from NVIDIA. That to this day, that's all it is. NVIDIA DLSS 4.5 with RAID Reconstruction is out. A new RAID Reconstruction update. I don't have much to say. Did you watch the marketing video, Dan?
I mean, yeah, I never really have that much to say about the marketing videos other than I see the I see the improvements in image quality that they were talking about in it. But
notably, though, this doesn't come out until August as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have much to say. It's like, yep, it's better. It's coming. Also, this almost was its own story, but we had so much to discuss today that I was like, no, we've already talked about Panther Lake. But I will say Intel's G3 handheld APU looks impressive. It has the full 12 Xe cores that Panther Lake has on laptop, but it comes with 2 P cores and 8 E cores. And I think this thing is actually going to be pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Genuinely, I was pretty impressed. I thought I saw that MSI's is going to be 1,500, and everyone's like, oh, that's a lot. I'm like, actually seems pretty fairly priced to me. Strix Halo handhelds are $2,000. A lot of the Xbox and other like Strix Point handhelds are $1,000. This is wildly faster than Strix Point and more efficient. And it's only 50% more than the Steam Deck that it will be 3-4 times the performance and everything else better, more RAM. But I actually think that this is maybe going to be the PC handheld to get.
Yeah, I mean,
it seems really impressive.
At a minimum, wait until you see reviews because I don't know. There's weird idiosyncrasies, I feel like, with some of the handhelds, how they end up performing. And I think that's in part because of what the OEMs decide to do with them. And this will probably go into good handhelds.
Yeah. So I don't know. I actually think it looks really good. I'm excited to see the reviews for it. Also, this is a weird one. The Asus ROG Xbox Ally X20 is out. It is the same thing in terms of specs, it seems, except a much better OLED screen. They have not said the price yet, though. My guess is this is them adjusting to pricing, and we'll see what happens. I don't think they can make it 1,500 because the MSI one with Panther Lake is going to destroy it. But it would be interesting if this is like their way to make the Xbox Ally X to $1,200 because now the Steam Deck is $950. By the way, I would still recommend the Xbox Ally X. Once you get to around $1,000, you clearly have the money. Just get the one that's better. Like, as long as you're not spending twice as much. I thought this was, again, not much to say. That's why it's not a main story. But Resident Evil 9 is getting VR on Steam, not on PlayStation. That's very notable. 7 and 8 exclusive VR support, at least for direct support on PlayStation. I think this tells you how a lot of devs are reading the room on PlayStation VR when people ask, what are they going to do next gen? I don't know. It just seems like Sony abandoned it and devs have no faith.
Yeah, I think Sony's done with VR. It would be nice to see them put a little bit of legwork in to make the PSVR 2 like more usable and like add some type of PC support to the PSVR 2, but I don't know.
Oh, and also LG announced the world's first 1,000 hertz native display, not overclocking, not whatever. And it's not like you have to go into 720p mode. It has 1080p at 1,000 frames per second. To be honest, there's no way I would ever buy this. I would love to test it, though, and see if I can tell the difference between 240 or how easily I could. Because maybe I can easily, but
the human eye can't detect higher than 24 frames per second, Tom. So
that's true. Yeah. That aged very well, those takes. If you have a 55-inch TV, you really don't need more than 720p.
Exactly.
Nothing writes him. Hi, Tom. I recently got into a debate about the quality and accuracy of your leaks. I think you do a lot of work to be clear about what you have high to medium or low certainty about. And you don't delete videos on stuff you've gotten wrong. There's plenty of stuff you've left up. And at the end of the day, there's no better source for leaks. Well, you're glazing me now. Okay, thank you. Others can disagree and nitpick if they want. Nobody's perfect. But I actually want to say the debate made me realize that this is reductive. There is so much more than just leaks that I value about Moore's Law is Dead. The conversations you and Dan have and all of the interviews are always thought-provoking. The interviews you've done collect so many different perspectives from game developers, other YouTubers, financial analysts, and from people who have worked in the semiconductor industry and more. It really puts together a holistic perspective that I think other more narrowly focused channels miss. So I just want to write in a thank you for all that you and the entire team do to produce interesting content on gaming hardware. Thank you. Well, as always, thank you for the support. And I really like what you said there, because there is a reason we do this. You know, I see there's a reason we do the things the way we do them. I see people in the comments go, I wish it was only guest episodes. Or just do leaks. Why are your broken silicon so long?
Throw Dan into a pit. I've heard
that was really only the first episode, and it wasn't a pit. There's just skeptical. Actually, Dan, you get quite a few comments now where they're like, I really like Dan's takes. And I've had guests say Dan should come on with you, and I'm like, no, the episode will be 4 hours long. Every person you add to a podcast adds an hour, because there's that many more people talking. But unless it was when they first started the channel, then for some reason we could only come up with 60 minutes of stuff to talk about, and our audio tracks would overlap a little bit. We did pretty good for trying it for the first time, but there's a couple times I'm like,
but I was told my mic is a shoebox at one point early on in the podcast, and I apologize. I have thrown away the shoebox, but
that you were talking into. Actually, early on, we actually just used long strings with cans to talk to each other across the neighborhood.
Really long string, because I was in Massachusetts and you were in Peoria at the time, I believe.
The beginning,
So it was like a 1,300-mile long string or something, but it worked.
Brag, Dan knows geography. But, I mean, there's a reason we do news episode for the past 2 weeks. There's always stuff I miss, like Carbon Cry looking at the earnings for Nvidia, and they're already getting ready to launder our robotics. That's something I would have missed. There's a reason I have a guest on every other broken silicon. I would become full of shit, or I've seen some of the most brain dead takes at some places, even places that I respect a lot, because they're only looking at their little thing and then they miss something huge. That's why you have to bring in guests. And then I still do leaks and deep dives, because every now and then you have to prove you can't just know what happened this week. You can add to it and prove you fully understand it. And I like it. I'm, bragging here, but I do think it gives us some of the most well thought out perspectives in this space. I really do. And so thank you for noticing.
Thanks for nothing. No, thank you. Nothing.
Oh, his name is Nothing. Okay. Well, guess we'll let you get away with that, but yeah,
it was a joke.
It was a joke.
Thank you. Nothing. Sincerely.
Thank you so much. You just start turning into a-holes about it. But yeah, I mean, that's it. That was the question/submission I wanted to end on as a positive note to stop here. I guess we managed to not let the girthiness get too far away from us on this one, Dan. I was worried this would be a 3-hour episode, which we've done before.
I still don't like that you said that, but yeah, I think we were efficient with how we talked, I think.
We hope you all will be efficient with your support, and make sure that you share this, like this, comment down below, give us hype points, and make sure you're subscribed to the Moore's Law is Dead YouTube channel. Maybe if you give us enough funding, we can find a way to stop this spotlight from being on Dan.
I don't know what happened. I didn't change
There's
any
an
of the
angel that has appeared to Dan like she did to Homelander. Hopefully not like Homelander. That would be quite distracting.
That's why I was looking what the hell just happened, because I didn't change my lighting at all, and I don't think I have the best lighting necessarily, but it just randomly was what if we just turned Dan into a ghost right now? I don't know.
Oh, it's coming down.
Now it's better. Now it's better.
But yeah, make sure you support us on the Moore's Law is Dead Patreon. We just had another die shrink come out. You can get our raw reactions to seeing the Steam Deck price increase. And then in addition to that, we also talk about what defines what a console generation is. It's another 1 hour discussion. Actually this one you get access to at the lowest tier on the Patreon. That's one of the monthly ones we release, to the very bottom $1 tier. At that tier also, you can ask us questions. The next guest is going to be Ed Zitron, a fan much requested by the fans person to talk about the AI hype. I was worried how things would go at Computex if we'd have enough AI BS to talk about with him. I think we'll have plenty. I think we're going to be good.
They flooded the zone with AI BS.
Yes, they did. Me and Ed are going to have a lot to talk about. So remember, just at the $1 tier, you can ask some questions. Higher tiers, get access to the Discord, asking questions on episodes, and so much more. Otherwise, yeah, everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a good week, everybody.
Goodbye.
This podcast was brought to you by the YouTube channel and website Moore's Law is Dead. Moore's Law is Dead and Broken Silicon are trademarked by me, the creator, Tom. However, Moore's Law is Dead is much more than just one man. It is a team with Broken Silicon co-hosted by my brother Dan, audio editing by Gerard Cortez, renders done by the industrial designer Jean-Philippe Clermont, and special assistance also provided by Carbon Cry and Kerry No Sugata. Find all of our information at www.mooreslawsdead.com. On the About Support page in the event you want to hire me for consulting work, or hire Gerard for audio work, Jean-Philippe for industrial design work, or are interested in working with Carbon Cry or Kerry No Sugata as well, you can find all of our information there. You can also find our long-term sponsors there and show them some love for helping make this work possible. Additionally, if you are a fan and would like to mail Moore's Law is Dead some love in a letter or with hardware donations, please mail parcels to Moore's Law is Dead, P.O. Box 60632 in Nashville, Tennessee 37206. And speaking of fans, patrons are what makes Moore's Law is Dead content possible. Every month and every day, actually, depending on the person, me, Gerard, Dan, Jean-Philippe, and more are working tirelessly to provide a steady stream of entertaining content and investigative journalism that aims to be as independent as possible from outside influence. Only direct funding from fans can make this possible in the modern era. And so if you have any extra money every month, even just $1 or $2, consider supporting us directly on Patreon. All members of the Moore's Law is Dead Patreon, even down to the $1.28 128-bit tier, get access to a catalog of dozens of essential Die Shrink episodes and the ability to ask guest questions ahead of Broken Silicon recordings. Additionally, higher tiers get access to the entire catalog of hundreds of episodes of Die Shrinks, and these include exclusive interviews with game devs and other guests, behind the scenes looks at Moore's Law is Dead leaks, and more niche coverage of subjects that really only the biggest gaming dorks like me and you would care about. They would not profit on YouTube, but they don't have to profit on Patreon. And so if you're interested in that, you can get access to all of that stuff and even more at higher tiers, like ad-free episodes of Broken Silicon, the ability to ask free questions in Loose Ends live streams ahead of recordings, thanks in the credits of videos and podcasts, and access to the Discord with thousands of fans there who would love to discuss gaming hardware with you. I am one of them. And hey, if you cannot afford to support us, please just share Moore's Law is Dead videos and podcasts with friends and family and on social media and Reddit, and give Broken Silicon a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app. All of that stuff does help a ton as well. But as I said, this podcast would not be possible without its patrons directly providing predictable and reliable support every month. And so now is the time to give a personal thanks to the greatest of the fans. The following supporters are at the 1024-bit HBM3 or higher supporter levels: Brad Medlin, Z Jits, Daniel D, Nicholas Buckner, Deke, Aaron Close, Jan Rauner, MJB1, Daniel Hyde, GZ Ziggy, SNES Chalmers, Jerem Ferrier, Valco Malev, Jensen Wang, Sarcastro, Chris Rich, Evan Dingle, Hal Booma, Shredbert, Sammy Malas, Chris Anthenos, Jonathan, Tommy, Matthew Casellas, Jake223, Jake Martin, Zlicky, Winwang, Gamers Unite, Ian Clifford, Meat and Pork, Tim Rogg, Travis Gooding, Zoot Taylor, Mads, Greg, Michael McGee, Stephen Coates, Mark Mitchell, Amy Will Chief, James Anderson, Mark Raidmaker, Dan M. 1988, I Should, Salty Internet Pirate, Henry Zhang, Wesley Sager, Cameron, Michelle Pell, Hexapuma, Tika Autumn, Little Germany, Windstar, James I. Raiders, Shay, Milton, Brett Jones, Chuck Glidden, Stephen Dick, Mac Daffy, Justin Bussell, Austin Haggerty, Joe Fit, Brian Wright, Brian Scanlon, Harlan, Sleshbaugh, Johnson Angima, The Forbidden Juice, Bing Bong 3, John Swin, Solarized 80, Kakum, Sprutnik, Brian P, Smash Axley, Cornstir 671, Penta Winta, Omega Doge, Hugo Ander Kiwi, John Wick Boomstick, Mr. Tiger, AI Soldier 789, Penguins Love AI, Porcelain Oats, Dominic Passeri, Karim El Mazri, Wahil G. Bowles, Manos Redkusas, Kevin Kuntz, Jonathan Harris, Bespoke EP, Kai Noose, Johnny Trans, Fred Fredberger, Zubir, Ahmed, Arkeo, RK0, Hunter Temple, Dudester, Henry Day, John Tiberius, OMG Clover, Roadkill Dog, Rebellious Pilot, Joseph Renfro, and of course, thank you to Sahara for the music.